Hey, Uncle George, this is Ken. Ken, this is Uncle George. Buddy, I've known for a long time.
Probably too long. And that happens.
Yep. In fact, after the podcast, we have to break it off, take a break.
Actually, yeah, I'll just move this here. Check testicular, yes. And you can kind of see the middle, right in the bottom center. You see the one that's going up as I'm talking.
Yeah.
So as long as it's in the yellow, not the red, but we're fine.
Perfect. Nice.
So we have to get this out of the way. If you've listened to my other podcast, All Hail Tom Brady and Kenny Chesney, No Shoes Nation rules.
Cheers.
Cheers, man. You probably have heard the backstory on that.
I did.
Where
Yes.
my daughter would edit it out.
Yeah.
That's how I know you actually have listened to all my podcasts.
Yes. No, like I told you, podcasts get me through my work day, so I have 8 hours to kill a day, basically.
And you said you're, and I guess I should introduce you. So Tauren Blackman, longtime friend. Met him through our mutual friend Nick when I was living in Salem.
That's right.
And I think the first time I met you is because me and Nick kept going into Liberty Spirit.
Yeah.
And you were doing karaoke there.
That's exactly
Yeah.
I was KJ in there.
And at some point, I was also kind of doing the DJ thing when we first met. And then at some point, God, you knew me. Did you know me when I was doing Presley's?
Oh yeah, I knew you before you were doing Presley's.
God,
you're the one that got me the gig there.
oh, that's right.
You got me
you
the gig
did
there.
Presley's too.
Yeah, you're the one that actually got me into DJing on my own. Because at that point, I was only working for the bar, and while I was going to school, and you were basically trying to encourage me to go on my own. You're like, dude, there's so much more money in it. It all goes to you, and you're good at what you do. You're better than most of these, bar KJs. Why don't you go outside this and make something more of it?
You just had the right attitude about it. You didn't have an ego, and you're like, hey, I'm just here to, make the customer happy and whatever. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, before I was jaded. I was having a good time.
I forgot that you worked at Presley's. God, we had some stories.
Yeah. Yeah, and you were basically at the point where you're like, I don't want to do it anymore, but if you're interested, you could probably do it for a while before you get too tired of it.
Before you get burned out and want to slit your wrist.
And that's exactly the course that took place.
Look, God bless them. I'm nothing against the strip clubs, but it's just it wasn't a good environment.
No.
Oh, God,
it was tough.
And I don't want to get into business details, but kind of the way that I felt like the DJ there was asked to do too much.
100%.
Was asked to do more than he should have been. You know what I mean?
You're basically a hired babysitter and had to kind of help keep the flow of the business going.
And you were kind
while
of
doing your
and
DJ
you were kind of
job.
expected to also handle some financial stuff, like get the I forgot what they called it, the door fee for every dancer that came in that night. You were responsible for collecting that at the end of their shift.
Yeah, the house fee.
The house fee, yes.
Yep, you're responsible for that. Obviously, your cut, any lap dance fees.
So she would also, part of your pay came from the dancers. They were supposed to tip you out, and that was always a fight.
Yeah, and that was a bigger part of your pay, which sucked because if you were someone who was timid or shy or didn't feel good about, setting your foot down after all the sob stories you get from each of the girls every night, how they didn't make any money.
And every night it was a sob story.
Every night was pulling teeth.
Which again, I'm not judging. This is why I don't script my podcast, because I had no idea how this was going to start out. But we're going down this road. I don't know. She might have left before you got there, but there actually was. What's the famous story for every girl that's a stripper? I'm just doing it to pay for college. There was
she was still working there when I got there. I can't remember her name, but she literally she do more of the daytime.
She was
shifts.
Going for educational degree. She became a school teacher.
Yeah,
and she actually showed up to work. She didn't get drunk. She wasn't doing drugs. She did her job and went to school. And then when I think graduated, she was gone.
Yeah, that's very true. I think she left when I was there, and that's what she was doing.
The exception that proved the rule.
Yeah, she was the one that I actually ended up believing the story that I'm only doing this to get through college.
She was the only one that there was no drama.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much. There was one other girl I met there, and we're still friends to this day. Now she's a bartender around some of the Salem bars.
Danielle.
Yeah.
Byro.
Yeah.
I'm still friends with her on Facebook.
Yeah, she was the only other one that was super down to earth.
She was actually always a sweetheart.
Yeah, super sweet.
Yes.
I mean, she ended up being in one of our music videos. We became friends for ever since then. I've known her almost as long as I've known you now.
So I've seen, but isn't she also doing the DJ thing?
Yeah, and she's doing the DJ thing, and she's really good.
And she's a bartender.
And a bartender.
I'm friends with her on Facebook, but I see her post. I couldn't tell if she was in the Portland area or she's still in Salem.
Well, I think she does the bartending in Salem because that's where she lives.
But her DJ gigs, she's doing in Portland?
Just like us, wherever they take you.
Oh, okay.
She does like events and
Yeah, she's like an actual DJ.
She's an actual DJ, not a KJ. She's done KJ stuff.
A lot of the dance music stuff.
Yeah, or she'll be she'll be the house DJ for a rap concert for the night.
Oh, really?
And she'll DJ for each of the rappers. They'll kind of give her their audio tracks, and so it's pretty cool.
Okay, that's a level above what I was having. I mean, even at Puffs, which you did Puffs.
Yeah. I followed you around.
Stop it. by the end of it, my time at Puffs, I kind of got to the point where I could scratch a little bit, and I knew how to mix songs. I knew how to beat match, and I could kind of be a DJ. But I don't think I could ever do what she's doing. Like, if a rapper wants to do a show and actually rap live, but she has to mix the beats and unless she is literally just pushing play, I don't know.
No,
they might ask her to do a lot more stuff.
I think they did, and granted, I don't want to speak out of line if I'm wrong, but judging by some of the footage and videos I've seen her post throughout the years, I think she did a little bit more than that. And I think some of the rappers she works closely with, and they probably rehearse some things for their sets.
Yeah.
But I think also too, she was in the know enough to where if there was a rapper that was performing that night who she's never heard their set before, they could still give her the audio, and basically maybe give her a couple details or instructions, just like, for example, like my band might give to a sound guy and say, hey, here's our set list. I put a couple notes on there for you for some mixing or engineering, and as long as it's not too crazy and you have a good sound guy, they can usually help accommodate.
Yeah. So see, obviously if they're going to give me a track, I could play it, but the closest I ever got to that, there was, and it happened at Puffs, a couple of nights in karaoke where some local guy that I don't know if he was he performing somewhere, but he wanted to come in and freestyle his own lyrics. And he would ask me, can you just loop a beat for me? And I knew how to loop a beat. And I would say, well, do you want it, 115 or do you want it down to 90 or 95? And I would find just an 8-bar section or sometimes 16 bars, and I would just loop it.
Yeah.
And just give him that beat, and he would freestyle to it. But it wasn't like I was also scratching over the top of it and adding to it. I would just literally loop 8 or 16 bars and let him freestyle.
Yeah, which is like being a sound engineer for that.
I knew how to do that. I mean, the software makes it easy, and the virtual DJ. So.
Yeah, no, exactly. And now you got, when you were getting to that point, is we were so busy separately that we weren't able to connect, and we also lived so far away.
Yeah.
But we were talking about that because I was getting interested in wanting to go more that direction myself. I was so burned out with the karaoke stuff.
Right. You wanted to actually be doing like a DJ night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I wanted to get.
It's good you didn't though.
Well, and now I also know too, at that point it was too late for me because I was already checked out. Yeah. If I would have got into it maybe earlier and found the passion in it like I have for music and my live bands, I could have went with it. But by then I
stayed in it too long. Thank God Pam got me to just like, hey dude, you're over 40 now. You need to get a fucking job with benefits, dude. So thank God for that, because I'm super happy at Costco. And it's funny because now my perspective now is I look back and I'm like, I don't regret it, but I do have a little bit of a cringe thinking about how many nights I spent at Puff's Pub or any of the other ones. Met a lot of good people, had a lot of good times, and got into a lot of music. But if I would have started at Costco 10 years earlier, you know how much more I'd have in my 401k?
Oh, yeah. 100%. I feel exactly the same way because you and I basically followed the same path. We DJ'd for our main only source of income for so many years and probably got sucked in for a lot longer we ever planned on it.
Or should have.
Yeah. And then when we got that real job, that daytime 9 to 5, and realized all the benefits and perks that come with it, it's like, dang, I probably should have started this a lot sooner in my life than I did. Like you said, I don't regret it at all because it's really set me up and for a lot of things and where I'm at. But definitely wouldn't mind shaving off a few of those years before I decide to get out of it.
Yeah, can I go back to like at least? I wish I could go back to 40. You could probably wish you can go back to 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%, or even maybe late 20s. Because I think I got into it. Well, I got into it 06, 07.
I moved in with Nick in September of 2008.
Okay.
Were you already at Liberty Spirit?
Oh, yeah. I started Liberty Spirit 06 or 07.
Okay.
So, and I think then I was just going back to college.
Okay.
And I needed some supplemental income. I was basically living off student loans and grants, right? And I just had a kid. So
a little bit of pressure.
A little bit of pressure. So I needed to go to school, but I also needed money. And it just so happened that gig became available, and I've never done it in my life, but I got thrown into it because my ex worked there.
Did you get the gig because you knew another KJ, or you knew? I forgot the people that owned it. I forgot.
Christina and Jordan.
Yes.
Yes.
Did you know them? Is that how you got?
Well, I met them because my girlfriend at the time, my baby mama, her aunt had worked there filling in for a KJ there.
Okay.
And so she knew Christina and Jordan, the owners.
Okay.
It wasn't for her and her thing, so she was helping them out while they're trying to find somebody. And then she needed help because she had another job. So Crystal, my baby mama, she was kind of coming in there and helping out too. And she's not a very social person. Okay. So she was like, Tauren, I was already coming in to visit her while she was there, at nighttime after school.
Right.
And she's like, while I was in there, I guess Christina Jordan heard that I played music and was in a band.
So you were already in a band at that point?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I've been in a band. I was in a band for probably 6-7 years at that point.
Was it a different band?
Well,
or a different version of the same band?
The guys I've been playing with at that point were the same guys for the most part.
Okay.
For those 6 or 7 years, guys I went to high school with. But,
okay.
Yeah. So basically, when Christina and Jordan found out that I was in a band, they're like, well, that seems like you'd be perfect. You
understand audio equipment. You also understand how to talk on a mic.
Yep. That was all
music. I mean,
that was all their reasoning, and I was deathly afraid.
That's way ahead of what most KJs know, because most KJs that get hired, they take the job because they want to sing.
Exactly. They come from a completely different
background.
They don't look at it as a
job like, oh, I can just get paid to stand up there and sing.
Yes.
I'm like, no, it's not about you.
No.
Well, God, we've had this discussion.
Which is why I was definitely not your typical KJ, because I was deathly afraid of singing on the mic karaoke because it was a whole new animal for me.
But you could be in a live band and sing.
Which is completely different.
That's
and a lot of musicians you talk to, I think you'll find.
Is that a common thing?
I think it is a common thing. From the ones I've talked to, a lot of them, ones that write their own music. Now, I think musicians that are in cover bands, it's completely different because you're basically doing karaoke with live music. But musicians have only ever wrote their own music and sang their own songs.
That makes sense because
they don't have the confidence to go sing other people's songs.
And you're singing to a track. You can't. The band can't adjust to you. They can't speed up or slow down. You have to stick to the track.
Yeah, and your whole vocal performance is based off that band, that live.
It's based off what the radio version of that song that everybody in the audience has heard, and you're like, I can't match that.
Yeah, to this day, it takes so much to get me to actually sing karaoke. And so my customers loved it because I wasn't hogging the rotation.
Right.
Yes. So they loved it. They followed me around for that.
This was a thing I had through several different bars because I worked at a place. I had a regular gig in the Philomath place. I was doing places in Canby and Molalla, at Gresham, Oregon City. You were doing.
I was pretty much following you.
Was it Tacho? What was it? Oregon City. Was it Tachos?
I did. Oh my God, I did Tachos, Gins, McNulty, and Berries.
But all those bars, and I remember that there would be nights, especially if if they didn't know me as a KJ or whatever, because I don't know if this was my philosophy, and I learned it from JD, a guy named Doug, who was like, look, do your karaoke, but if you don't have any singers and you only have 2 and you have 50 people in the bar, mix in some DJ music. So I was always about, I'll play DJ music until somebody wants to sing. And there were several nights where we advertised karaoke, start at 9 p.m. and nobody is putting the song in. So I'm just playing DJ music. And sometimes customers that wanted to sing karaoke would come up and go, well, when's the karaoke? So I'm like, oh, whenever you want. And some of them would say, well, don't you have to start it off?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no, I'm working. I don't.
Yeah.
You want to sing? Give me a song.
Yeah. I had so many customers get mad about that.
Yes.
And be like, and even sometimes the bar or club that I was at would tell me like, no, you need to kick it off because they're used to those typical traditional karaoke hosts that sing every 5 songs. They're like, that's going to get people out here.
Started on that.
Yeah, it's going to because like some of the customers are more shy. They don't want to be the first one.
I guess it might, but especially since you actually were in a band, you're a singer, and then and just me, not in a band, but having done it for a long time. I'm not sure how that's going to make them more comfortable because I'm actually going to be okay. I'm going to be decent.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can sing Margaritaville and sound just like Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah.
So how is that going to comfort the timid ones?
Yeah.
How's that going to make it better? You want me to go up there and actually do a good job?
Right? I hated doing that part of it. I hated being put pressure to sing, but if they told me to do it, I would do it. I was getting paid.
Right.
I would basically do whatever. That was where I think playing in the band did help me out a lot, was saying that if push comes to shove and you got to go out and perform, even if it's something you might not want to do or you're nervous or maybe there's only 4 people in the bar or there's 100 people in the bar, you can kind of just put on a mask and just say, fuck it, I'm going to do it. Hopefully I can cuss.
Fuck yeah, you can cuss.
But
every time I upload it to YouTube and to Spotify, I have to check the box that says this is not for families or this is not. I forgot what the question is, but
family friendly.
You have to, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
You have to check if it is adult content or not.
Yeah.
So fuck yeah. Sorry, your uncle.
Oh no,
fucking cuss.
Yeah, no, don't have to worry about censoring yourself
this
here.
is a good thing because again, you know what it's about. I repeat every time. I don't want to keep going through the elevator speech, but yeah, this is about your origin story. You went to high school in Salem?
Yeah, I started out in Malala first.
That's right. You had a Malala, which I thought about that because I came through Malala tonight.
Yeah, was it Canby or Malala? Or did you live in both?
No, I went to high school in Canby. But tonight driving down here.
Oh yeah.
I was with my daughter at my friend's winery, which is between Canby and Oregon City. So the quickest way was to get on 213 and come through Malino and everything, and that's how all the road construction happened. But anyway, as I was driving through there, I was like, wait, I think Tauren has a connection to Malala.
Yeah. Because my dad lived my whole life. My dad lived in Malala, and my mom lived in Salem, and they divorced when I was 2, so I would go back and forth between throughout the years. But most of my schooling years was spent in Malala until after freshman year. I moved down to Salem, went to North Salem High School.
Okay, and at what point? I'm assuming it was high school sometime where you got into the band thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where I actually got into the band.
So
was when
how
I
did
met
this
somebody.
Start though? Where did you just be? Were you doing choir? I mean,
no. I come
singing?
from no musical background before that or talent. I've always loved music. My dad listened to classic rock, and that's what I grew up on. And he was always blaring it, playing it every weekend. I mean, in his car, he always had a nice stereo system in his classic.
So you grew up with music in your life.
Yeah, and not as appreciated as much back then as I do now. My mom's side of the family, they listened to a lot of older music, whether it was Elvis or old country or, gospel and things like that. So I had a pretty eclectic background of genres that I would listen to.
Yeah.
And I always loved it. And I always loved when there was music around. And so what happened was my dad found me an acoustic guitar on the side of the road by his work.
That's right. I don't want to interrupt, but I seem to remember, because again, the fact I brought my guitar in because I didn't want to leave it in the truck, but something about it triggered a memory. I was like, I think you're not just a singer. You know how to play guitar.
Yeah.
Okay, but go ahead. So this started with your dad buying you an acoustic
Finding
guitar?
it. He found it
on the side of a road.
Yeah, basically. And it was upside down, and it was shiny from the machine heads.
Was it in a case or just a guitar?
No, just sitting there by itself, and it was a Fender acoustic. It was a nice one with gold machine head
outside
tuners.
of Malala somewhere? Or?
No, he was working up in Portland at the time at one of the frozen warehouses. I don't know if it was
or maybe Milwaukee, like Americold to Milwaukee?
Yeah, might have been Milwaukee, because he did work there.
Okay.
I think actually it was outside of Americold.
Okay.
And he just brought it home one day, and he's like, here, it's yours.
Was he knew it damaged?
It had a couple dings on it.
Okay, but you could still put strings on it and play it.
You still put strings on it and play it. It was a really nice guitar, but I think it was warped because the action was so
like the neck was
high.
bent?
I think so. At that time, I didn't know enough to know if that's what it was,
Right.
or if the action just needed to be adjusted.
But you mean the strings were way high
They
off the
sat way
fretboard?
high off the
Oh, I
fretboard,
hate those kind of guitars.
and so it's so hard to play that it
Yes.
almost discouraged me from learning. So I got frustrated and put it in my closet and didn't let it see the light of day until I moved to Salem. Met
Right before your sophomore year.
Yeah, it was my sophomore year, the beginning of my sophomore year. I met a buddy who became a lifelong buddy and guitar player with me in art class.
Okay.
And
But you guys met in art class. That's funny.
we met in art class and drawing art.
Actually, that makes sense. You're artists, whether it's music or art. I mean,
yeah,
it's all art.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And I loved drawing. At that time, I had more experience in writing and drawing.
Okay.
Like that path was where I totally thought I was going to go in life. And I saw him walk in, and even though it's so funny because I was a rocker through and through, but you wouldn't tell by the way I dressed. I dressed almost preppy.
So this is, I should know your age, but I'm guessing this is the mid to late 90s when you're in high school?
Mm-hmm.
When did you graduate?
02.
Okay, God, you're so young. You're just a friggin' baby.
Yeah, I think we're about 10 years apart. I'll be 40 in a month.
Okay, so you're in high school from like 98, 99 to 2002.
Mm-hmm.
I know the music of that era, but what bands were you listening to?
Yeah, so the what they call now new metal was what was coming out late 90s. I was definitely into that, but I was also into everything from the 70s up.
Because you were raised.
That's what I was raised on, and it was still my favorite music at the time. So when this guy I'm telling you about, Jesse, came into art class, he always had headphones on, and he always had like a Pantera hat on and Ozzy Osbourne
What's his
shirts.
name?
Jesse?
Didn't I meet him at Presley's?
Yeah, he used to DJ there
Yes!
after me. I got him the job there.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah,
I know
exactly. It all connects.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so he would come through class. He wouldn't talk to anybody, just very stoic, straight-faced, listen to his headphones. Like, it looked like, off Breakfast Club, dude's name in the trench coat.
Bender.
Yeah.
Bender, Jonathan Bender.
Yes, exactly. He had that attitude, and he didn't give a shit about anything.
Oh my God, that's
didn't want to
hilarious.
be there, barely,
And
but
the
he loved
memory of him
drawing.
is coming back. I can see what you're saying.
Exactly.
Because he's a super nice guy, but if you don't know him,
if you don't know him,
Yeah.
he's not very approachable looking.
yes,
And to me, though, I was like, that's my people right there. That's the kind of person that
you felt a connection.
it felt a connection, and he hated me because he saw me dressed up in like Quicksilver and khaki pants and K-Swiss shoes, and was like, who the hell is this preppy?
So I obviously was in Bend at that time, and I'm older than you. So what style clothes you were wearing? What did that tell people? I don't know what K-Swiss is.
Yeah, it was the popular, trendy,
like
preppy,
the hip preppy.
Preppy.
Okay, at the time.
At the time,
got it.
Yeah, back in those days when Tommy Hilfiger was big.
Oh,
and
so he was looking
Ralph
at you
Lauren
going, you're just a typical douchebag.
Yeah, 100%. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure I might even I had probably spiky hair with bleached blonde tips. I look like the typical
You were
90s.
Backstreet Boys.
Yeah. Yeah, I look more like I was probably listening to Backstreet Boys
Yes,
from the
and
way I was
NSYNC.
dressed, which I hated at the time. And he looked like he just got back from a Pantera or Ozzy concert.
Right.
And I was like, that's my type of people right there. But of course, he couldn't tell by looking at me, so he didn't really give me the time of day until I kept bothering him. And he, when I started talking about music, he could tell I knew my shit. I knew all about Ozzy, all his albums, and
But so at this point, had you already been messing around with that guitar your dad found for you?
So actually, at this point, I started picking up the acoustic guitar again and ended up getting an electric
I'm sorry,
guitar.
that's right. You said you put it away for a while.
I put it away, actually, and I picked it up right before I left Malala my freshman year because one of my other buddies, Dave, he was walking through lunch. That's how I met him in Malala. He was walking through the cafeteria with an acoustic guitar around his neck, just walking around, just playing little diddles on the acoustic guitar at high school at school.
That's awesome.
And I was like, I don't know who this dude is, but I like him.
That's super cool. Like,
Yeah, he's just walking around playing acoustic guitar, talking to people.
I have trouble doing that now.
Yeah. And he was just talking to people, chatting in between. He'd be playing. He played. I heard Crazy Train. The intro riff to Crazy Train.
That's awesome.
And I'm like probably the biggest Ozzy fan most people will ever meet. And so I'm like, dude, you have to teach me how to play that riff. Like, I just need to know right now.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, can you read tabs? And I'm like, oh, a little bit. Some of my dad's friends that come over and play, they try to show me. And I was like, but I don't know how to play anything really, you know? And he's like, well, let me sit down and show you. It's actually not too hard, but you'll need to practice. So he sat down at the lunch table, and when he showed me how to play Crazy Train, I went home, pulled my acoustic guitar out of the closet, and was obsessed till I got that opening riff for Crazy Train
You just kept doing it.
Kept doing it, and then when it started sounding like Crazy Train, I was like, if I can play this,
you're hooked.
I can play anything.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the best riffs written ever by one of the best guitar players of all time.
Yeah.
So I got that confidence again, and not so discouraged.
Shout out to Randy Rhoads.
Yes. Rest in peace. My favorite guitar player of all time. So that's kind of what reignited the fire. Then I started just downloading at that time. The internet was very slow, all dial up, but I would download.
Oh, you were on Napster. You were stealing music. No, I'm kidding.
Right? Well, this was just the tablature at the time. I was just printing off the tablature and learning as many Ozzy or AC/DC songs I could learn.
That's right, because that was before YouTube.
Yeah, there's no YouTube, which I wish there was.
Because I picked up guitar. I taught myself to play guitar, but I picked it up. I started playing 4 years ago, but there was YouTube. So any song I wanted, I could find a video. I don't need to be able to read music. Just show me the friggin' chords. I know what G, C, D, and E are.
Yep.
Show me the chords. I'll play it. I don't care about music theory. I don't want to be able to read sheet music. But back then, you had to find tablature.
Yeah.
Where it shows you what finger on what fret and what string.
Yeah, and if you're not good at a tablature, unlike reading actual sheet music, it's hard to get down the certain techniques or beats and patterns and strumming patterns and rhythms. So you really have to combine it with listening to the track while you're...
Because you have to, even if you know the chord structure, you have to feel it. You have to hear the song and
or else it doesn't sound right.
Feel how they play it.
Exactly. And that's one of the struggles. And they didn't have every song you could think of like they do on YouTube right now. Any song you could think of, someone's got it on YouTube.
Yes.
Or definitely, I mean, you could still print off tabs or look at your phone and download tabs that will, the screen will scroll along as you're playing.
Yeah, I have that app on my phone, Guitar Tab. Yes.
Exactly. It's like back then, it's like you were at the mercy of what was available and what you could print and download, and sometimes they were batshit wrong, and you start playing it, and you're like, this is not the song.
Yeah. Because they would find, what I've found even in my struggles, or not my history of learning, for every song I put in on YouTube to find a guitar tutorial, there's like 50 different versions, and they're all different.
Yes.
And I'm like, so what I have learned is I type in the artist, and I'm like, live acoustic. Find me a video of the artist actually playing it live on acoustic guitar, and then I will see what chords he actually uses, as opposed to what everybody else is guessing he's using. And
exactly.
Like I've seen some of the songs that I know, Hootie and the Blowfish, Let Her Cry. That is the easiest song in the history of the planet to play and sing. But I have seen so many different versions, and I see some people putting capos on it. I'm like, he doesn't capo it. It's just open tuning, man.
It drives me nuts because, you're right. And I'm such an indecisive person anyways and analytical that when I'm learning that song, I want to know I'm playing it right.
Yes, the way the artist
even if
intended.
I choose later to alter, edit it, play it differently, play it more my style, I want to start from the baseline of knowing what the right way was to play it.
Yeah.
I've slowly, because of that and lack of time and frustration, I will now maybe look 2 or 3 versions up or YouTube, right? And play what feels easiest for me in my wheelhouse, to where if I played it in front of somebody, they would still know exactly what song I'm playing.
Right.
And sometimes with my voice, I realize I have to maybe detune it a little bit. I still haven't got good with the capo yet. I really need to get the theory of that down, because I have a capo, and I know what it does.
Yeah.
But I have not practiced enough with my voice to know right where to put it and what songs I need it for.
So if we want to, I'm going to get back to your origin story about when you were in high school and you met Jesse and all that stuff in the band. But this brought up a thought. Because my roommate freshman year at college, I've talked about him on the podcast before, Jason Moore.
Yeah, I remember
he's a guitar
hearing
virtuoso.
About
He's
that.
Friggin' amazing. I went and recently took some lessons from him. In fact, the morning of the day I turned 50, I went and had a guitar lesson from him at his house. And he was talking about, have you heard of the CAGE method?
I don't think
and it's
so.
an acronym. I forgot what CAGE stands for, but it's basically, instead of using a capo, it's a way to... So you have a D chord, the regular D, but you switch how you form it, and you use these 3 fingers to make the D, and you essentially use your index as the bar. as the capo.
Yeah.
So it allows you to play up and down the entire fretboard using your index finger as the capo and forming the C, D, E, and G shapes with your other fingers.
Yes.
And then you don't have to have a capo. It allows you to, I guess, change key without having to put a capo on.
Okay.
And now it's hard. I've tried it. It's like, you're up like on the 7th fret trying to do a D, but also bar this and
the bar part especially. Yeah. And so I was familiar with that technique. I didn't know it was called the cage mode or the cage theory
method.
Yeah. But you're right. And I think that's where, and I have small, tiny girl hands and fingers. So for me, sometimes barring that fret,
the stretch
can be hard. So for me, it's like I do like the luxury of if I just slap my capo on it and let my little fingers do
Because I'm not trying to be Randy Rhoads or Steve Vai, who is my favorite guitarist. I'm not trying to be them. I just want to be able to play my favorite songs and have people recognize what I'm playing.
Yeah.
I get pleasure out of the song itself. So you know what? I'm going to put a capo on there.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it's all about the voice. I want to do whatever will help my voice stand out because I don't know enough theory and background to know, exactly what my range is right away without filling it out and playing it. Like I don't know the terminology for, the theory to say, oh, well, if this song's in this key, then I need to, do this with my voice.
I don't know what that key is.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
I just hear the song and I know the chords. And then as I'm playing it, if it's a singer like some of the songs I do, I do some Nickelback songs. I know the most hated band in America. Fuck you all. They're good. They rock and they just write hit songs.
They're starting to get some love again, though.
Anyway, they are. Yes, thank you.
Thankfully.
But anyway, I can't sing the way he does, but I still play it in the same key that they do. But I also have to adjust where I'm singing it at.
Yeah.
And then you obviously know about that.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, it's all about feel and just learning on the fly. I never learned. I regret not learning more theory in the beginning. And actually, just recently, I started reaching out. I do want to take vocal lessons.
But you've this is something I swear we're going to get back to your high school time. But this is something else that I talked to you about when you were still at Liberty Spirit because I came and saw your band at that place in downtown Portland right off of Burnside. Your band opened there. You played a gig at that, whatever it was, right off of Burnside and right next to the river.
There was Paris Theater, there's the Roseland, and
it wasn't the Roseland.
Okay.
It wasn't Satyricon. It was, I know where the Roseland is.
Theater,
it was on the other, it was
almost, on the other side?
It was behind Dante's. There was a bar behind Dante's.
Oh, yeah, it was Paris Theater.
Is that what
That's the one behind Dante's.
And there was more bands than just you, but I came down and saw your show.
That's a long time ago, yeah.
Oh, geez, yeah.
That was a Paris Theater.
2010 or 11 or something?
Oh, before then. Probably maybe
2009?
2009 probably, because Paris Theater closed down right
But
around
I remember
that time.
you, and at that time, it was a metal band.
Yeah.
And you're like doing your throaty screaming stuff. But at some point I talked to you about it when you were KJing at Liberty Spirit, and I was like, and you mentioned that you had, maybe not officially, but you had done some vocal training to learn how to do that. Because you actually said you wished you had learned that earlier, because for so many years you were just screaming and blowing your vocal
the wrong
cords
way.
out.
Yeah.
But somebody had taught you a different way to do it, but now you're currently also taking some more?
Well, yeah, I want to for the singing aspect too. But yeah, I basically I got a DVD back then from this super revered lady named Melissa Cross. She comes from a professional singing background.
Okay.
But what she did, and kind of what claimed her name to fame with a lot of these high-profile rock and metal bands, is that she took her knowledge and theory of basically the whole anatomy of the voice and everything,
right,
and breathing and air, and put it to metal growl vocals, so raspy vocals,
from the lungs, the diaphragm, all the way through the vocal cords, and how you shape your lips and everything, your tongue, everything. Because
for years it was always frowned upon and told that no matter what, if you're making those noises with your mouth, you're not doing it the right way. It's going to be you can't prolong,
and you're not going to last.
It's not going to last. But they found since then, because there's other folks on YouTube as well, that there is the right proper way to do it, where people can have longevity and stamina and sustain. Because there's artists that have been around for 20, 30 years now, have been screaming, and they're still doing it. I mean, Pantera is a perfect example.
I was going to say Philip Anselmo.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I haven't heard him recently. Can he still do that?
Yes, his voice is different, and he did do it wrong for many years, like a lot of them did.
But he still is pretty good.
But he's still good. Slipknot, Mudvayne.
Oh, Slipknot is Corey Taylor?
Corey Taylor, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So these guys are out there doing it, and a lot of these guys that I just mentioned, well, Corey Taylor, one of them, he went to the Melissa Cross and got training from her. So there's definitely right ways to do it, and a lot of it has to do with breathing is the biggest part, which is the biggest part of singing in general.
It's about breath control.
Breath control.
If you're pushing too much air past your vocal cords,
that's where you damage them?
That's what strains them.
That's what strains them, because then they basically vibrate too harshly together, and that starts tearing them up and create nodules and things
you have
like
to get
that.
surgery for that shit.
Yep.
That's what happened. Let's go back to a Nickelback reference. I don't know if I told you the story, but Nickelback was supposed to play at the amphitheater north of Vancouver in the summer of, I think it was 2016. Yeah, we had tickets, and at the time, it's different now, but there was this Jolly's was the name of the bar. It was right off the I-5 exit when you get north of Vancouver, where you get off the exit to go to the amphitheater, and on the right side, the east side of the freeway was a bar, Jolly's. So a lot of people would go there before the concert start and drink. We were literally at that bar on the patio, met a couple of friends that were going to go see Nickelback with us, having shots and drinks, just pre-funking. And then somebody announced it. It just got announced like at 4:30 or 5 p.m. and the show was supposed to start at 7. Canceled. And who was opening for them? Not Oasis. Oh, I forgot the band that was opening for him. But anyway, they had come back from Tokyo. This was their first stop back in America, and Chad lost his voice, the singer.
Oh.
And they canceled the concert. And then the next year, 2017, he had to go get surgery and get the nodules done and all that bullshit. Went through a ton of training. And I saw him in 2017. It was almost like a makeup show. It did pretty good, but I could tell that wasn't the same Chad Kroeger that was doing How You Remind Me.
Yeah.
But what's funny is we just saw him July 1st this year at the amphitheater. It's come back. He's got his voice back.
That's yeah, because I know a lot of times I get surgery, they don't sound the same.
No, he didn't for years. For at least 3 years after that, he had lost the power behind it, and it became almost more of a head voice when he was doing his screaming.
Yeah. So he was a guy that had a lot of power behind his voice.
Instead of look at this photograph, it was look at this photo. It was that thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But now he's got it back.
That's awesome, because he is one of the best voices of all time, especially for rock.
So anyway, go back to what. So you started with this vocal coach, Melissa
Cross.
Yeah,
via DVD.
Right.
So I didn't actually.
But she taught you some stuff. And
she did, and I also around that time, maybe even a couple years earlier, I went to a local vocal coach in Salem at the time, who helped me, because I kind of went through something similar where I completely lost my voice for like 2 months after straining it.
Was
at
it
shows.
too many gigs?
It was doing it the wrong way in too many gigs. Yeah, I was pushing myself too much, so I started getting really scared, because at that point I was like, well, shit, can I only not perform and sing in my band, which we're playing shows every weekend, sometimes multiple shows. Like, I can't talk, and I need to talk for a living. And
is that why I had to come rescue you at that wedding in Oregon City? No, you were just sick on that one, I think.
I think I was just sick on that one. No, but I think that was the only other time in my life where, well, maybe not my life, but that one was scary too, because it was a wedding,
right?
And that's you as you know, that's the biggest fear,
you have to announce
of not being able to perform.
But when it happened, when you were in Salem, it was just doing it the wrong way and too many gigs in a row, and you literally
straining.
Could you even talk?
No,
like you had laryngitis, totally.
Voice is gone. I had to go to the ENT doctor. They had to put cameras up my nose, down my throat, which I don't recommend anybody doing if you don't have to, because it's probably the worst feeling in the world. And I've had to do it a couple times now. But yeah, I started getting some nodules.
So that happened to you. You actually
had
nodules?
It did. He said it wasn't to the point where it needed surgery, that they would be able to probably heal. I will say my voice since that time, maybe a few years later, has definitely changed. Even my hard, heavy screaming voice never been the same.
Let's say matured.
Yeah,
it's matured.
Let's use that word. Yeah, it's matured. Yeah, there's definitely some heaviness that I used to be able to, some different ranges of heaviness I used to be able to do that I can't now. And maybe I can train myself again to do it, because part of it too is just I haven't done it for so long.
Yeah.
Because it is a muscle, and if you don't work it out, it goes away, and you have to start.
Yeah, it gets flabby.
It does. Yeah. It does. And it sounds horrible until you start doing it all the time, repetition. Just like working out, running, whatever, your stamina.
It's the same thing. You don't want to overtrain it, but you do have to train it.
Yeah, you want to find a good balance to keep it going.
In shape.
Yes, keep it in shape.
But allow for recovery, but also keep it active.
Exactly. And no different than any other muscle, because they are muscles, the vocal cords.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they are.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, you want to have them trained.
That's the only way that they can tense up and relax. It has to be a muscle.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's really cool is that nowadays I watch this lady on YouTube. I'm obsessed and addicted. Named Elizabeth Zaroff. She has a channel called The Charismatic Voice. Voice.
She interviews people. Mm-hmm. I saw her interview Brent from Shinedown.
Yes.
She interviewed Brent. She also recently, I saw another one. She interviewed, it was another rock singer. I forgot.
David Draymond from Disturbed.
Yes.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so she's a real vocal coach?
She's a professional opera singer and vocal coach, vocal teacher.
Okay.
She's insane. Like, if you watch her opera videos. So she's
really good. I've never heard her sing. I've just seen the podcast.
She's amazing, but definitely operatic. I mean, she could sing just traditional, contemporary.
If you can do opera, you can sing anything.
Anything.
Yeah.
In fact, the cool thing is that one of these newer metal bands that are out there, she's taken a liking to them and really started coming to the metal community. She's fascinated with it because she comes from such a traditional opera background. Was always told that, that music's off limits.
She definitely seems genuine.
She's totally genuine. And so she has this guy who's a very amazing vocal singer, screaming heavy metal style vocals, come and teach her how to do it. And she took to it like a fish in water.
For her, it was probably like, that's how you do it?
Yeah, she knew the science behind it. And they put a camera down his throat, and he would scream and show what his throat was doing, the science behind it.
Okay.
And then kind of telling her how you do this technique. And so there's video of her repeating what he's telling her. And then all of a sudden, never tried it before, she's screaming. And it's like, what? This is amazing. I wish these people were around back when I was in the metal band.
Oh my God.
Doing this all the time.
I'm going to find that video of her doing that. That's awesome.
She's and what got me hooked on her before I even knew all that stuff was she made it her famous for doing reaction videos to all these rock songs.
Yes.
Like Black Sabbath, Metallica, and coming from the opera background going, what the hell is this? I love it.
Yeah.
So she's breaking it down from a scientific analysis.
How is Brian Johnson singing Shook Me All Night Long that way? How can you do that?
Exactly, because it defies everything they've ever been taught and trained.
Yes.
It shouldn't be possible.
Especially if anybody's seen Brian Johnson sing live, he seems to do everything wrong where he tucks his chin down.
Yes.
And he's like, and he's all tight.
Tensed up. Yeah.
And
wow. Yeah,
I'm like, that doesn't look right, dude. You're too tense.
Yeah, it's exactly. And so for me being such a fan of all those artists, I'm going like, yeah, it's a win for us of like, look, there's so many talent. So much talent.
They actually are.
Yes.
That's a talent.
It's a talent, 100%. And it's you can't say it's sending it in or faking it. It's not.
Oh,
that
and by the way,
hard.
we have a unique perspective on this, being years as a KJ. All the proof we needed was how many times has somebody at karaoke night tried to do Let the Bodies Hit the Floor?
Oh my God. And
they think they can do it.
Yeah.
It sounds horrible, and they just swallow the mic and they scream their head off, but it sounds horrible. It's not easy to do. It's not just about screaming.
Yeah.
They're actually singing.
Yeah.
You have to be able to sing that way.
It's so much breath control.
Yes.
It is.
But that was the one that every time somebody would put it in, as soon as I push play, my hand was on the volume button, because I know when he gets to that part of the, let the bodies hit the floor, let the bodies hit the floor, let the bodies, then I would kill the mic.
Immediately. A lot of times you can turn it all the way off and everybody can still hear him because they're just yelling at the top of their lungs.
He doesn't need a mic.
Yeah, don't need a mic at that point. That's 100% reality. Yep. I got some cold beers in there that you brought. Yep. Actually, I'm going to get another one too.
Have you done a podcast?
It's been too long, man. I miss it. That's why when you asked me, I was like, dude, yes, please.
So, yeah, I bookmarked your high school thing, but I also want to talk about the fact that you and Brendan were kind of my inspiration for this.
Oh, what?
Because you were the first podcast I'd ever been on before I even knew what a podcast was. I'm talking off mic, but it's probably picking it up.
Yeah, I got to get a beer break. Hello. We're still here, folks.
There's something about the angle I'm setting at. I think it's the sun was in my eyes. I was having trouble seeing the indicator lights.
Yeah, I noticed you kept looking over there and squinting, and I probably should have stopped talking so you could figure out something was wrong.
The point was I wanted you to keep talking just to make sure that I was seeing the indicator lights go. But, I'm old, so my eyesight's going.
I'm not too far behind you. I mean, maybe a decade, but that's about it.
You're more than a decade. I'm 51. You must be like 38.
No, I'll be 40 in a month.
Okay,
September.
So you're 11 years younger than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
so
just
about
a
a
baby.
decade.
You're a baby.
About a solid decade. Well, yeah. I mean, to you, maybe. I don't feel like a baby. And then, also, too, maybe a little side note that you can relate with over the years of how the fact we've DJ'd for way longer we should have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was another thing that helped me know it was time to get out of there is when you see all these people coming in, you just realize how much older you are than the new crowds of 21-year-olds that are coming in every year. And you're supposed to be the entertainment.
Dude, it was awkward when I was at Puss Pub, and you know that one. It's a good reference.
Yep.
When I am DJing on a Saturday night, spinning the dance music, and when did I retire from there? I was at least 45 or 46 years old when I actually called it quits. But you have a 40. Thank God I shaved my head so you couldn't see the gray hair. But when I'm up there scratching at 46 years old and I've got 21-year-olds shaking their ass in front of me, I was like, you know what? I got to go. This is not appropriate. My daughter is older than you. Seriously, that became a problem when my daughter was older than my
your customers. Yeah.
Oh, God.
That's right.
Yeah.
I even feel you on that, being 10 years behind you. It got to that point where I was like, I think I quit, and I quit doing it altogether when the pandemic hit. Obviously, everybody did for a while, but I didn't go back. That was my ticket to get the hell out. Yeah. So it saved me in a lot of ways. That was kind of
your hard stop.
Yeah, that was my hard stop. But even then, I think for the year before the pandemic, I was just being very selective, only doing them here and there, basically to earn a couple extra bucks or help out another friend DJ, cover him a night.
Maybe you were still doing. Do you still do weddings or
no? No. My last weddings also too, I think, was the year of the pandemic that I had already booked the year prior, and there's only a couple of them.
Okay.
Or maybe even the year before, but yeah, I stopped doing everything to the point where I almost have, it might sound funny, but you probably understand, maybe it's not funny to you. I have this sense of anxiety and PTSD of the thought if I had to go right now, after years of not doing it, go and DJ again for all kinds of reasons.
Does it make a difference if somebody called and asked, can you either do a club night or a wedding or a private event? Either way, it creates anxiety.
Doesn't matter. Karaoke, club, wedding. I think the wedding gives me the most anxiety because it has the most pressure and responsibility.
Too. Yeah.
But even the karaoke is more not for the pressure and anxiety I get. It's more for the PTSD of knowing what state of mind I had to be in to do it and how much I had to drink and be on their level.
That's the problem. It's the environment.
It's the environment.
That's what hit me when, I look back, lots of good experiences, but I'm like, it is not a healthy environment to be in. To be in my 40s in a bar until 2 a.m. 4 nights a week.
Yeah.
That's not a healthy environment.
No.
It's a young person's game.
100% young person's game. I agree.
And God bless them. I had a blast when I was in my 20s doing that shit. But you got to grow up, man.
Yeah. And there's some old school folks that love doing it. That are older than us that go out there and do it, but I think they're a little bit different. I think
they know how to manage it better.
Yeah, well, 100%.
I think some of the trappings or the temptations of that lifestyle they are immune to. Maybe.
Yes, that's not because I think for me that was one of the biggest bonuses and incentives for me to start out doing it, and reasons why I did it before it was ever even the money thing. The quick, easy money definitely became a part of it. That's why it probably took me so long to get out of it, but. Yeah. When that stops becoming fun anymore and not worth it, that's where you're not going to be a lifer and it's not for you. Yeah. But I think you're right. The folks that are lifers is because they actually have a passion for it. They love to do it, and they're not succumbing to all the other negatives.
That's funny that you say you don't have a passion for it because when I started, I got into being a karaoke DJ years before I met you, and I was strictly karaoke before I learned how to kind of do the DJ thing, but It was because I was at the karaoke bar every weekend, and finally they were like, "Oh, well, you're here all the time. Do you want to work?" And I was like, "Because I love singing." I'm like, now at a point, I got to a point where I hated them. I hated the entire environment. I hated people coming in and butchering songs that I like. I hated the entitlement, the sense of entitlement,
Yes.
and the I don't sound good. It must be you're doing something wrong. No, it's just because you suck.
Yes.
But also just the unhealthy environment. Just fucking. And you're right. I would go there and just fucking drink.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I would drink. I would show up, and some nights like, okay, I'm not going to drink tonight. And an hour into the show, they were annoying me so much I had to have a drink to tolerate them.
Yes.
And it's not their fault.
No.
That was me. That was all me.
Yeah.
And even did you ever meet that DJ Oso Fresh that was working at Puffs for me?
I knew who he was.
Okay, so he's actually a real scratch DJ.
Real, yeah. I don't think I met
and
him.
He worked for me several times, and I learned a lot from him. He's one of the guys that taught me. But I remember because I would go to his house in Vancouver for just scratch sessions. He was trying to teach me, and at some point he made the comment. It was the truest thing, one of the truest things ever said to me. He was like, "You like it, you don't love it. You don't love it. You're never." And he was right. It was like, yeah, I'm never going to get a Vegas residency. I'm never going to be scratching vinyl and having 1,000 people. He's like, you like it, but you don't love it. He could tell. And I was like, yeah, that was the start of the end for me. I was like, I got to get out of this, man.
Yeah, 100%. And that's right. And I think you and I were on the same page in so many ways of our style, how we ran our shows. And obviously I learned a lot from you too, because you're the one that got me out there on the solo, start your own, work for yourself.
I did? I don't remember this.
Yeah, you did. Because at that point, like I said, I was working at Liberty Spirit, and you came in there as just a customer hanging out with Nick singing karaoke.
Right, because me and Nick were friends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we started hitting off and talking, and you were like, talking about, I don't know if you're talking about your gigs and what you did, and then it came up business and pay and like what the going rate was. And I think I told you what I was making, and you're like, wow, like you could make a lot more money doing this.
That's right. Because at that point, when I was living with Nick is when I bought my first portable PA system, which that is still the mixer that I bought. And then my Yamaha speakers.
Yeah.
So at that point, I actually had my own PA. I could start doing independent bar gigs. I could start doing weddings. And I had the library of music. Yeah. I had the karaoke and the DJ music on a hard drive.
Yep.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, you were basically saying that, hey, there's a whole other world out there where you can make your own money. You could do this for a living even. And because you knew I think I probably told you at the time, yeah, I'm just doing this because I'm going to school. Right. I need some extra money. And you're like, well, if you work for yourself, you make your own schedules, you get your own money.
And at some point, you must have bought your own PA.
Well, I've always had a PA because I was in a band.
Oh, because you were in a band.
Yeah,
that's right.
Sang
so
in a
you
band.
Already had the equipment.
So I already had the gear, and I was like,
That's
it was
right.
too easy not to.
Yes.
Or too easy. Yeah. So I was like, and I think again, probably similar conversation we have now. You're like, yeah, dude, you already got the laptop, you have the PAs, like you got everything you need. Get a library, and you help me knowing where to go to get libraries.
Yeah.
What, this and that, and so it really made sense for me to do it, and I loved Christina and Jordan who worked at the bar, and I loved all the other coworkers I worked with, and I loved the environment there. That bar was my home for many years, and I still, even for a while when I did start going on my own, work both. But yeah, I mean, it came to a point of down to money and also just being my own boss.
Yeah.
I didn't have to follow, because, I was literally getting an actual payroll paycheck and taxed directly from a payroll paycheck from that bar.
Oh, right.
So the money was super minimal, and of course you got to follow all the rules set by the bar you're working for, that company. But when you're on your own, you can tailor and customize your own business and how you want to entertain and present yourself. Yeah. And people hire you because they like what you do and what you bring and offer.
Well, then once you can start doing like weddings and private events, reunions, birthday parties, that's where the money is.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Load your summer up.
Yeah.
And then it can cushion you for a little bit.
Yeah.
And also you learn so much along the way. In the beginning, to get my name out there, I would take any gig in the world and do it for the most ridiculous price.
Right.
And then start realizing quality over quantity. You could do half the gigs and get the same or more throughout your whole summer. So why stress yourself out trying to do 80 events in one season? Yeah.
So I'm still bookmarking high school for you. But I do also want to give a shout out to Brendan and you both. Because, yeah, it was – did we decide on what year that me and Nick and me and Pam came down to your house in Kaiser? What year was that?
I think it was 2016.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, because I know we lived there at the time. We just had our son Jackson, and that's when we were really –
a little closer.
That's when we were really into the podcast.
Yeah.
Was then. I think we only did the podcast for about a year.
I think the first one was me and Nick, our favorite bartender from Puff's Pub in Gresham. We came down, did your podcast, you and Brendan, and then – the next time me and Pam came down, and that was because she's a health and fitness coach, and we got into a lot of topics about health and fitness when she was there.
I think it was the other way around.
Was it me and Pam first?
Yeah, because the Nick one is the one that didn't end up getting published.
That's right. Okay. So,
and the one with you and Pam did.
So me and Pam first, and then me and Nick. But yes, so shout out to Brendan, who was going to try to be here tonight. I'm talking to the camera now. But, obligations. He couldn't make it. Love you, Brendan. I appreciate the opportunity, and you inspired me. And every time I reached out to you, especially trying to get my daughter's podcast going, you were super helpful. Tell Mel hi, and I hope the fam and everybody is doing great. But Tauren showed up.
Yeah,
I'm messing with you. I'm
messing
with you.
It's like
Brendan.
our old podcast. I ended up showing up and Brendan didn't, so
I am
it sadly
just
ended.
with you. So anyway, let's go back to you. You met Jess in the art class. You'd already started playing guitar, and then was there somebody else in high school that you met that started your first band?
Yeah. So him and I eventually, after
Jesse,
I forced myself into Jesse's life, basically, and he realized I kind of.
You kind of knew something.
Yeah, well, when I started talking about music and how many similarities and common things we had in common, he started going, okay, well then maybe this guy just dresses like an asshat, but is actually pretty cool dude.
I mean, he doesn't really like the Backstreet Boys. He just dresses like them,
right? Well, it was high school. It was about girls, so it's like
right.
Me and every other guy that had that on their mind nonstop all day, every day. Yeah,
right.
That's what you did. However, Jesse got more than his fair share of ladies. It was just he had that bad boy image.
I don't know if I can. Oh, I don't know if I. Can I? I'm having memories of Jesse at Presley's.
Oh yeah,
he was
open.
He
was open book.
He was. The dancers liked him, if I remember right.
Yes.
So that's been going on since high school. Like,
yes,
where the women just were attracted to him.
Yeah, and in high school. He had a complete different look and was a heavier guy. But
he was pretty slim at Presley's.
At Presley's, he was completely so he ended up getting diabetes.
He still drew their attention.
He always
has.
The
dancers.
He's always had style, no matter if style's been that old school
I'm not
rocker.
saying he did anything with any of the dancers. I'm just saying that I noticed that the strippers kind of liked Jesse.
Yes.
They were interested.
That is a very safe to say.
Just being
that's the truth. Yeah,
okay.
No, that's, yeah.
He was intriguing to them.
Every girl that's ever met him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's always the ladies' guy, even for years to come in the band.
Yeah.
Like he was the guy that after the show, the chicks were.
Right. Okay. So you have Jess, and then I'm sorry, who was the other guy that?
Yeah. So after me and Jesse became friends, we realized we both liked the same music, so we started hanging out and playing guitar together. And
so in the band, was he a guitarist?
Yeah. So he was a guitar player. I was a guitar player, and we both found that out.
Okay.
We both were very beginner level guitar players, but we loved it.
Were you were learning on an acoustic?
I bought an electric. I just bought an electric right about that time, as I was meeting Jesse, right before I met Jesse. I bought my first electric guitar. Do you remember the music store in Salem, Weathers?
Yes.
That was around forever?
Yes.
I bought my first guitar there. It was a Yamaha Pacifica, which is basically their version of a Telecaster.
Okay.
It was like a $200 guitar, and I bought a little practice amp.
Right.
And I played that thing. I lived out in West Salem. I played that thing all the time. I would put headphones into it and just play all night.
Did you have the Pocket Rocket where you could
I
plug
didn't have
headphones
that.
into it? And
I know what it is. I didn't have that yet. Throughout the years, I think I got one.
Okay.
I actually had a little practice amp, but it had a headphone jack, and I knew if my parents were going to let me play this thing.
Oh, right. Then you could at least plug the headphones into the amp, and then they wouldn't have to hear it. Right.
And, during the daytime or when the parents weren't home, I would crank the amp up because it always sounded way cooler coming out of the amp. But yeah, so I was just playing forever, and me and Jesse started playing together, and he was talking about, like, yeah, man, like I think I want to eventually get a band together. And I was like, yeah, me too. Like that'd be awesome. And we like the same music. Well, who else do we know that plays music that goes to school? Because Jesse, he'd been going to Salem his whole life. I just popped in from Malala.
Right.
I didn't know
Your
anybody.
Sophomore year.
Yeah, I didn't know anybody. So I left it to him to help put together. I know this one guy might play bass. I know this other guy might play drums. And so that's kind of how it came together. Slowly, we'd try out these other high schoolers that he knew and had them come in and rehearse with us.
Where are you? So it's funny. All of you are in high school. Where are you practicing at? Whose parents are letting their kids set up a drum set?
Yeah, exactly. Well, for a while it was just us playing playing electric guitar, so we could kind of turn it down and play either his house or my house. But then when the drum set became a thing, at that point I got kicked out of my house at 16.
I'm shocked.
Well, me and my stepdad, we did not get along.
That's fine. We don't have to go into that.
Oh, it doesn't bother me. But yeah, so we didn't see eye to eye. I got kicked out of my house, and basically at that point was like, okay.
And you were 16?
I was 16. I was going to North Salem High School and working at Cinnabon in the Lancaster Mall.
Yep.
I had my own. I was a very responsible kid. I had my own phone line. I paid for my own car insurance, and I bought my truck myself, or my van. At the time, I had a Chevy van because we wanted to get the band going. And I was basically just living in the van, still going to school and going to work.
Oh, wow. For how long, man? Seriously, that's interesting.
I was doing that for probably about a month or two until Jesse's mom found out.
This reminds me of like a Dave Grohl story. You seriously were in high school, living out of a van for a month, or a van for a month or two.
Yeah, I had nowhere to go, but I was enrolled in school, and I had a job in the mall. I had to keep going.
But you kept going to your job and kept going to school.
Yeah.
That's impressive, dude, at 16?
It was tough. It was tough.
But that's impressive that you did it.
Yeah.
Wow.
It didn't last for too much longer after that with the school thing because of the band thing and the work thing. I had to pay for my gas and pay for, our band to play and buy equipment. And so.
But at this point, you had the semblance of a band. You guys
it was coming together slowly.
Rehearsing slowly. You had 4 members or 3?
At that time, I think we had 3 members, and it was a bass. It sucked for a long time because there was no percussion. Bass. We got a bassist.
So 2 guitars and a bass. But you didn't have a drummer.
And we didn't at that time know I was going to sing. We didn't have a singer
really?
either.
So
I never planned on singing. I was a guitar player back then.
Interested because my favorite band is Def Leppard, and I love the story of how Joe Elliott became their singer. How did they decide you're going to be their singer?
Yeah, we got a buddy of mine to come in. We bought this really crappy, shitty drum set and said, hey, I know you've never played drums before, but we were just all friends. Just sit on there, learn it, listen to music, play beats, whatever. Doesn't matter. Let's just get something going. We're all learning.
Here's a drum kit.
Here's a
basic drum kit.
Basic drum kit.
Mess around with it?
Let's mess around. Let's learn a couple covers.
Is that really how it happened?
Yeah. And what happened was we prematurely booked a gig because we felt like, well, if we book the gig, then it'll light a fire under our ass
to learn to practice.
We'll have to practice a couple cover songs at this little company picnic park thing it was for, surprisingly enough, my stepdad, who we ended up having a falling out and got kicked out of his place. And we booked the gig and realized we didn't have a singer. And we're like, well, who's going to sing?
How many rehearsals in were you?
Gosh, I don't remember at that point.
You rehearsed several times. At some point, as the pressure of the gig is coming up, the date is getting closer. At some point, somebody said, who the fuck's going to sing?
Exactly.
Is that really how it happened?
That's how it happened. And so we said, well, we don't have time now. We're under the gun. And the date was getting closer. Said, we are all going to have to just figure it out. It's going to be one of us. And we're like, okay, well, who's going to sing? No one comes from a singing background. Like, well, here's this one song. I think one of the songs we're playing at that time was a big hit. It was Kryptonite by 3 Doors Down.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we're like,
yes.
Let's go around the room.
Each one of you try it.
Try
whoever
singing a verse. Whoever sounds the best, you're the singer.
So you did
They
Kryptonite.
picked me. Yeah.
That is how you got the gig.
That's
how you got the gig.
Yeah. We played. It was so funny too. The 2 songs I remember that we played couldn't be farther from each other. It was Kryptonite by 3 Doors Down and Black Sabbath NIB. Because I was a huge Ozzy Sabbath fan.
Yes.
So I threw that in there because I knew the riffs already and I loved Ozzy. And so, yeah, I was the singer from that point on. And it just stuck. And then I started liking singing. Because after that gig, we started writing our own music. I think we were trying to write our own music already, but we knew if we're going to be playing our first gig in front of people, we especially Frankenstein together with this what you would maybe call a half-ass band.
So at that point, you had several years of experience as far as just playing guitar, kind of. Even though you
not several years, maybe like
a few
one
years,
or two.
but you weren't trained in music theory.
Hell
but
no.
You knew the chords on a guitar, but at some point, you guys start writing your own songs.
Yeah.
And were you just like, I know these chord progressions, I'm familiar with them, and now I can just write lyrics to go over those. Find the chord progressions I like, make it sound like something I like, and then add the lyrics over top of it, or did you write the lyrics first?
No, we definitely did the music first on guitar, and then wrote the lyrics and vocal patterns, which to this day I still do.
Okay.
But what really got us into being able to write our own songs and get the band to take off was just consistency and how much time we were putting into it. We were doing it literally every single day, to the point, like I was saying, I eventually dropped out of high school to focus on the band and work. And we were spending so much time. We knew chords, we knew basic chords, and we had chord books.
Right.
We would learn from anybody that we knew, especially older folks, uncles, family that knew how to play guitar. We would always do our best to have them pick their brain, come over, and learn from anybody and everybody that played guitar or music. And on top of that, we would buy Guitar World magazines, all those magazines that would talk about, interview the guitarists, talk about what gear they used, talk about the technical nerdy shit about playing guitar. They would throw a song or two of how it's played in the guitar magazine with a tablature.
Yes.
So we would do that and listen to our favorite bands to find out. That's where we learned techniques and how they got these different sounds that you wouldn't learn by reading the music. You have to hear it and feel it.
Yeah.
And so we put all of that together and spent so much time that you just naturally get better.
So were you
starts clicking.
Once you kind of became the lead singer, did you also kind of become the main lyric writer, or was it a collaborative effort?
Yeah, Jesse he was very creative and artistic, and he loved writing. He was already writing before I met him.
Okay.
And things like that. I think probably songs or things that could be songs, and maybe some of them were just poetry.
Just poetry, right.
But he loved to write. My style was definitely different, our writing styles, but at that time I never really written anything other than stories and things of that nature, and, literature type stuff, and some poetry a little bit, only because school would have classes where they kind of made us do those assignments.
Right.
And then I started getting intrigued by it. So I would say it was almost 50-50, maybe a little 60-40, me writing, because I was the one singing it. But, yeah, that's kind of...
So then you talked about your first gig was kind of the impetus to actually have to practice. What was the first gig? Where was it?
In West Salem. Do you know where Brush College Park is? Out in West Salem. It's out by... do you know where Brush College Road is? Off of Wallace. Are you familiar with West Salem very much?
So if you go over the bridge from downtown, and you get off the West Salem exit?
Yeah, and then which turns into Wallace Road.
But go up the hill or keep going straight to parallel 22?
No, you go up the road, so you take the
up
right.
the hill, right. Take a right, go past
keep going way out,
yes.
almost like you're going to go out of Salem.
Yes.
Yes, and then one of the last streets on your left that's still considered West Salem is a street called Brush College.
Okay.
And we lived down there. We lived down there, but the park was across the street from where we lived.
Just
and
like
it's called
a
Brush
neighborhood
College Park.
city park, or?
Yeah, it's a rural park.
Was it part of the housing development, or was it an actual city park? Or
I think it's a city park. Pretty sure it's a city park, and it's surrounded by forest and trees.
Okay.
And then on the other side of that's residential. But it's a nature park. Has a couple trails you can walk. Nothing major.
Oh, some walking paths and
walking paths, some open field to play frisbee.
Cool.
Not disc golf, but actual frisbee. And it was there. That's where we played.
But what was the gig?
It was so my stepdad at the time owned a restaurant in Salem, and it was a employee or a customer appreciation party.
Okay.
For the customers. And I worked there too. Like I started when he owned the restaurant, the whole family worked there. It was a family owned and operated restaurant. And so our customers were like our family, basically. Right. Our regulars. And so we had it there, and he's like, "Hey, you're playing music. We have the company party. You guys want to play a couple songs?"
Had he been hearing some of your rehearsals up to that point, or
not really. He did though. Actually, he did. He did help inspire me playing guitar because when he was younger, he played guitar a little bit.
Okay.
He fooled around. I don't think he was in any bands,
So
but
he
taught me
hadn't
some
necessarily
stuff.
heard your music, but he knew you had a band, and he was like, "Hey, we're doing a customer appreciation. Does your band want to play?"
Yep.
And
That's
it was
basically
obviously
how
a
it
free
went.
gig.
Yeah, and it was 100% yes. Let's do this. And I was so nervous.
But it was all outdoors.
It was all outdoors on top
Did
of
you
some
set
pallets.
up City Park? Did you at least have were you on the grass or a concrete pad? Or
We put up some pallets with some plyboard on top of it, on top of grass.
a drum riser?
Yep. basically. Yep. So that way our gear wasn't all just sitting in the grass sinking into the ground.
Right. And they gave you at least one outlet.
Yeah, there was power ran out there for like
have
gatherings.
the two mains like what I use at a wedding, just two main speakers and that's it?
At that point in time, we didn't even have a good PA system.
Or were
so I'm
you
trying
just
to
kind of
think
running
what
off
the
your
heck
guitar
we
amps?
used. We might have ran out of a bass guitar amp for the vocals. Because nothing was mic'd other than the vocals. So the guitar amp, bass amp was plugged straight, and I'm pretty sure the bass amp was a practice amp.
So the bass amp and the guitar amp, that's what
I think the
you
guitar
weren't
amps were
micing them
practice
and
amps.
running them through a PA.
No,
it was just the microphone, the lead mic was run through the bass amp?
Yeah.
How'd that
Not
sound?
through the bass amp that the bass player was playing out of, but I think we had an extra bass amp.
Okay. And then
that we ran a mic
you did
through.
not mic the drum kit.
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
Probably didn't need to.
No, and we didn't. And that was, so it did work because the park was wide open and the folks that were listening to it that wanted to could be close enough to hear everything.
Well, and thank God, you know this, playing outdoors is so much easier than indoors. It's more forgiving. You don't have the bounce back and the reflections and...
Yeah, I mean, obviously your sound's going to travel, so if volume's what you're going for, then it's harder to achieve that, but
you don't have to worry
you're
about
not worried about the
feedback as
acoustics. The feedback,
because there's no walls.
It is, yeah. You have more leeway when it comes to that mix part of it, and as long as folks are up, you have the speakers are powerful enough, and the folks are where they should be. They're listening.
Right.
It could be a lot easier.
How many songs did you play?
We only played 2.
That was the entire gig, 2 songs?
Yeah, because we were definitely not the focus or highlight of the party, the picnic. We're almost like just an added, like, hey,
just a bonus.
A bonus, like if you guys want, check. And part of it was too is that all these customers knew me from working at the restaurant, just this teenage kid.
Oh, okay.
So I think they're all like, yeah, let's see.
That's right. I have to keep reminding myself that you were a friggin' teenager when this happened.
I was 16.
That's amazing.
I was 16 years old.
But you sang and played in front of an audience at 16.
At 16. And definitely not the style of music that any of those customers
So you were totally a front man. You were so comfortable being on mic and leading a band.
Oh, my gosh. And I play guitar while singing.
Which is not easy.
Not easy to do. It's just not easy to do. So that I had to learn that.
Yeah.
Because I was learning how to play guitar in general. Never sang before in my life. And maybe to an extent might have helped me because it was also new at the same time that I just started going, well, I know how to play the song. I know the notes. I know the chords.
Yeah.
Let me, now while I'm playing it, let's rehearse me singing over it. And you just learned it in real time.
Oh, my God.
It wasn't as much of like frustration, like, well, now my guitar playing sucks because it all just sucked.
Right.
So it's like
we're on a level playing field.
Exactly. It was all a level playing field. So I wasn't so over conscientious about how good my playing was while I was trying to learn the vocals. I think that helped because then they eventually syncopated together.
That is so crazy. And I'm just, this reminded me of something. I'm not trying to sue your podcast, but this just happened to me about 6 weeks ago where for the first time ever, I actually played and sang in front of an audience.
Yeah.
It was because I have a friend that I met who does like acoustic gigs at random like tap rooms and places in Vancouver. And I went to see her one night and she took an intermission and took a break and she goes, do you want to do a couple songs? And I had never done that. And I got up and I played and sang 2 songs on her acoustic guitar. So I'm impressed or I'm amazed because I can't imagine I could have never done that at 16. When I was 16 years old, there's no way I could have done that. I know that first time you're performing for an audience, that just happened for me. And thank God it went well. But it was nerve-wracking.
Oh, yeah.
But after that first gig, 2 songs.
Yeah.
So was that almost a cohesive thing for the band? Did you guys get inspired by that and want to work harder?
100%.
And you started booking other gigs?
That's the only reason, yeah. And that's the only reason that I think we all weren't as nervous as we probably should have been. I mean, we were nervous, but we had the band to back us up. Mm-hmm. So I would have been way more nervous if I was sitting down with my acoustic guitar playing in front of those same people, because I would not have relied on my voice ever.
Right.
Because it stands out. I mean, everybody's focused on that. I mean, screw up the
believe me, I sucked,
playing.
but I did it.
So I think what you did is way more brave than what we did back then. To this day, because I know I played like one open mic in my life, maybe a couple, but with an acoustic guitar. Yeah. But I think we were so hungry for it that overrode the nerves and the
because you'd been
hesitation.
Practicing and rehearsing for so long. You guys were like, hey, we're ready to actually do a gig.
I don't even think it was that, because I bet we probably should have practiced more. I don't think we even had a lot of rehearsals, to be honest with you, not compared to what we did later. We were just really wanting it.
2000, 99? What?
This is in, 99, 2000.
So nobody had a video camera? Nobody had a smartphone with the video?
Nobody had phones.
Nobody recorded this? I want to hear it.
Yeah, I wish. If somebody out there has a recording.
Somebody would have had a camcorder.
Yeah, somebody that happens to be listening to your podcast that was there that day for the JW's Restaurant Company party. Please find us, contact us. I want to see how horrible it was.
But at that point, you had the drummer, you had a bass player, and Jesse on guitar, and then you're singing and playing guitar. So you had a four piece.
Yeah, at that point, yes. And it was funny because the folks that we originally started out with on rehearsing in this, what you call piece together band, weren't the ones that ended up playing the gig. One of them was Jesse, obviously. But we ended up basically scouting a drummer from Malala that we had to go, drummer and bass player from Malala that we had to go pick up.
Somebody you knew from your time there, or?
Yeah, from going to school.
Right.
Somebody I knew, which was the bass player, Josiah. I reached out to him, or he reached out to me. Something happened where he's like, I play bass, and I was like, no, I didn't. And so we went up there, and I was like, dude, this guy's way better than the guy we're playing with. I was like, dude, we need a drummer too, which the drummer actually was from Malala, and we're all friends, and I was like, dude, our drummer Scott, he's just doing this to help us out.
So how long before this gig for the restaurant did you rehearse with these two guys from Malala?
Not a lot. In fact, and it's all kind of coming back to me as we're talking about it, and I'm putting it together. I think only a few times, like a handful of times, because the drummer was so busy, and they lived in Malala. We lived in Salem.
Yeah.
So that travel back and forth, I think it was only a handful of times to get those two songs down.
And were you, when you were singing and playing guitar, were you playing electric or?
Yeah.
Because it was rock music, I'm assuming.
Yep, electric guitars, playing that Yamaha Pacifica.
Jesus.
The PAs were so bad at the time. That was another thing that didn't help, is I could never hear myself.
You didn't have a monitor?
No monitor.
You didn't have inner monitors?
Couldn't
what
hear
the hell,
myself,
dude?
right? Yeah, where was my nice, huge rock star setup back when I was 16 and had no money? Yeah, no, and that was crazy. But we didn't care. I think everybody was so bad wanted to be in a band and so bad wanted to play live shows that we didn't give a shit. We just wanted to play. We knew that we had to start somewhere.
You did it at 16.
Yeah, and we didn't care if it was bad. We didn't care if people didn't like it, because we knew it wasn't going to stop us. We knew we loved it so much that we knew that we had to go through the shit to get to a point where it's not bad and you do get a following or fans. And
so after that show, with these last-minute additions from Malala, did they end up continuing in the band?
They didn't.
Or did you go back to the other guys?
We went back. We didn't go back to the other guys either. That allowed us to light a fire to practice more, get better at our instruments and our craft.
You and Jesse?
Me and Jesse.
Okay.
And because at this time we lived together. So when I told you about the van, I was living out of my van.
Right.
I was going to his house so often. We were best friends at this point. I mean, we had that connection that his mom found out. Says, Tauren, you're not going to live in a fucking van.
Because he was
could stay
with
here.
His mom.
Yep, he was living with his mom.
And she was like, Tauren, come stay with us.
Yeah, she's like, you're a high school student.
Oh.
You have a job. You're Jesse's best friend. We love you. You're like a second son to us. Just stay here.
What's his mom's name?
Ruth. She's amazing.
Shout out to Ruth.
Yes,
That's
Ruth.
Awesome.
Shout out. We love you.
I
love you.
Super cool.
Yeah. So she let me. She basically told me, you're moving, and she really almost didn't give me a choice.
And she shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I lived in the bedroom with Jesse, and it was some of the best times of my life.
That made it easy to practice with him.
Oh,
you guys were in the same house
every day. That's literally a daily life at this point. We would wake up early in the morning, drive to school, sleep in the van all day at school. I threw a mattress in the back of the van.
You didn't go to class?
Well, at first maybe, but we eventually stopped because we were staying up all night playing guitar and music.
Right.
So, but his mom was definitely not going to let us get away with not going to school. So we drive to school.
You had to at least have the appearance.
The appearance we got. We had to leave the house.
Oh my God.
And sleep all day. Come back about the time we were supposed to be coming back from school. Go right to the garage and start rehearsing and playing music again. And listening to music.
And
That's
at that
all
point,
we did.
She was letting you use the garage to rehearse, but there was no drum kit there yet.
No drum kit
just
there.
Just guitars and singing.
Just guitars and singing. I mean, there was a time or two where we did have the drum kit there, and somebody would come over and play on it, and she would let us do it because she was really supportive, super supportive.
That's amazing.
And it
again, shout out Ruth.
Yeah, yeah. If it wasn't for Ruth, I don't know if we would have, had the encouragement to keep going because it was tough in the beginning.
But after that first gig, you're living with Jesse, keep practicing, and at some point you find another drummer and bass player?
Yeah, we knew that there was a drummer and guitar player at high school.
North Salem,
and we knew they were good.
Okay.
Jesse knew they were good because he went to middle school with these guys. They played talent shows.
Okay.
But they were definitely above our skill level, and we knew it was going to be tough because they probably weren't going to want to play with us, especially even if they heard us and where we were at.
Okay.
But the thing is, though, is that where we lived, off Center Street in Citation, they had buddies, and one of them lived, the guitar player Justin, who I'm still really good friends with now, we're still making music together, and the drummer Josh. One of them, Justin, lived over off 45th, so on one side of our house. We were kind of the centerpiece to where Josh lived by the mushroom plant. And you remember the old mushroom plant in Salem? Over there off of State Street and Cordon. Smelled horrible over there for years.
East of Lancaster.
Yes. Old mushroom plant. It's what the bad smell was in Salem for 100 years. And so he lived over there. We lived over kind of by the Lancaster Mall.
Right.
And then the other guy, Justin Coleman, he lived over off 45th, kind of by Firebird Lanes, Bowling Alley, and some.
Oh, yeah.
So they would ride bikes all the time from house to house, and we would be in the middle with our garage open, jamming, playing tunes.
So they would pass your house.
They would pass our house and listen to us as we're practicing, and kind of give us the.
Pacha.
Yeah, the nose up in the air, like whatever.
Keep practicing, guys.
We'll
talk to you in a year.
Exactly.
That's probably really what they were thinking.
Oh, no, it was. All admittedly so. But sometimes they would stop and chat and talk with us as more of a friend level because they ride bikes, and sometimes we go out and just hang out with them a little bit here and there. And so we knew that was our goal, especially Josh as the drummer, because he was a very good drummer and super sought after. And so, but they were kind of a package deal because they kind of had their own band thing going, but didn't have a singer or anything. They're kind of like the me and Jesse, but drummer and guitar player instead of two guitar players.
Okay.
Seeking the same thing.
Right.
And then right across the street from us, this guy that was there that went to our school, we didn't know for a long time, but found out his dad played bass, gave him a bass. And so he was dilly-dallying around in his home trying to learn it.
Okay.
Which was good enough for us. So we started having him come over because it's convenient. He lived across the street.
So now you have a three-piece.
So now I have a three-piece. So that's where the bass player came in. And after enough rehearsal and practice, and they would eventually start, because they would always listen as they passed, eventually we were, I guess, getting to a point where they stopped and wanted to come in and maybe like listen to more. And all of a
sudden you became worthy.
Yes. A little more worthy in their eyes. And so then they were sitting there going like, oh, okay. But still, we didn't have them sold. It's all coming back to me until we actually played another show. And this show was one that was a real actual show at a place called the Governor's Cup downtown Salem back in the day.
Is that a coffee place?
It's a coffee shop. Still there.
Yes.
Been there 100 years.
Yes.
Yeah, old coffee shop. Real small hole in the wall. So I don't know how we even booked the damn thing.
But you came in as an electric rock gig?
Yeah.
At a coffee shop.
They started to do shows after hours. So they would keep the shop open later for shows on the weekend.
What time was the gig?
Probably 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock.
Okay, but
so we weren't getting their daytime coffee crowd. You weren't getting
the daytime coffee drinkers.
No.
But they brought an actual, and I don't know if you, at that time, the songs you were doing, would you classify it as rock or metal? Were you heavy?
Yeah, it is. I would say it's equivalent and very resemblance or very reminiscent of Godsmack.
That's pretty heavy for a coffee shop, dude.
Yeah.
But you got the gig.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we booked the gig. We were going to high school, so we passed out flyers everywhere. I mean, everybody in that school had flyers.
You posted them on the telephone poles.
Oh, on the poles. We were giving them people in their backpacks. We were
my God.
The way North
Just
Salem.
like the Sunset Strip in the 80s. That's what you were doing.
Oh, for the first 5-6 years, it was promoting flyers.
Oh my God.
Word of mouth, riding bicycles with backpacks.
Because there was no social media back then.
There was no social media back then. That's how you had to do it.
Yeah.
And we packed that little, it was a little place, but we packed that place out. So that gig, we had to borrow from Malala again, a different drummer at this time, and no bass player. This is actually no bass player. So backtrack a little bit. We didn't have the guy that lived across the street yet.
Not yet.
It was me and Jesse. We stole a drummer from Malala, who was a buddy of mine, who was in another band in Portland.
So 2 guitars and a drummer, and you were singing.
And I was singing. And we booked this gig. We kind of did it like the last time. We kind of booked a gig and then lit a fire under ass. And we got to do it.
Oh, we have to practice.
We have or we have to get members to come play this damn gig.
Yeah, we
were practicing every day at this point. And so we booked that gig, and 2 of the people that happened to be at that gig was Josh and Justin. Crossed arms,
randomly.
Like let's
or
see.
Did they hear about it?
Well, they heard about it. Everybody in North Salem High School knew that we were playing this gig. They wanted to come check it out. And that's what lit the fire to get Josh in our band. He's like, this guy, they're playing shows. We're not.
Oh.
So even though they're not good.
Even though we can ride our bikes by their garage and judge them, we're like, they actually got a gig.
They have gigs.
They got a gig.
And Rommel.
And they're doing it.
Yeah. And Josh really wanted to play that bad. I mean, we all did. When teenagers, you want to play shows, man.
Yeah.
And so the fact that we weren't that great, and probably he knew that all we did was practice and eventually might get better, hopefully. He was like, well, at least I can go play gigs. I can still play with my buddy Justin, but I could go play gigs.
If I join with them, I actually get to perform in front of an audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Imagine that.
Exactly. So that, and he didn't join the band right away after that, but I think that's what caught his attention and his eye, because after that, we then eventually started playing more shows, changed band names, got a different drummer.
I guess we should talk about that. Probably not for the first gig in the park, but the second gig at the coffee shop. Did you you had a band name? What was it? What was the band name?
Purgatory.
That's very uplifting.
Yeah, Purgatory was.
But you changed it after that. What was the next name?
Yeah, the next name after that we had a couple that we went through. One was Unleashed.
Okay.
One was Brutality. Right, it was all these here. The angsty.
I like Unleashed, but Purgatory and Brutality. God.
It was it's cheesy as all hell.
You're 18 years old. I get it.
Yeah, even younger.
Yes.
And by the time that we actually started getting a good foundation where Josh got in the band, and we actually started making a name for ourselves in the local scene, it turned to 12 Gauge, and that's the one that really got notoriety around Portland, Salem, Eugene.
So
well, not
at some
Eugene
point,
at that time.
Josh and the drummer.
Josh is the drummer.
I'm sorry, the other guy.
Justin.
Yeah. They joined the band proper.
Josh first joined the band. Really pissed off Justin. We call him B.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because he just broke up their duo.
But when he joined the band, did he say, Justin, you should come with me, man?
No, because at that time, me and Jesse were both playing guitar, and nobody thought of adding a third guitar player we didn't need one.
Is that where you stepped back and became the singer then and let Justin in?
That's exactly what happened next.
If I could probably be a better singer if I don't have to fucking play guitar.
Yeah, because actually what happened next was that did become the thing where let's try 3 guitar players, because Josh wanted to play with Justin. Right. Justin didn't want to be left out. And when Justin started rehearsing with us, he was so much better of a guitar player than we were.
Right.
So much better. It was to be stupid not to have him in the band, whether I stopped playing guitar or what.
Yeah, just let you be the front man.
Yeah, and we did play some shows, and we rehearsed where we all 3 were playing.
Right.
And I did love it. And I did love playing guitar and singing, but at that time I knew I needed to focus on my stage presence, my vocals, and I didn't want to give up playing guitar, and I definitely didn't want to lose all the work I put into it, but I knew it was probably for the best. It was best for the band.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. I dropped the guitar. I think for a while, maybe a couple songs, I would pull a guitar out for a song or two, put it back randomly, and then eventually it just all faded away.
Yeah.
But that's how we got the lineup that was really solid, that eventually started making albums and demos and playing out of town and all that stuff.
So you actually you got to a point. Was this before I met you, where you were actually doing some touring?
The first tour that we ever did was 2008, so right about the time, probably that we met, and that was summer of 2008 was the very first tour.
Did you play at the Whiskey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
On that tour,
I was so hesitant to make sure I was remembering right, but I swore that it was you, that your band played there. But I also did. If I was wrong, I was like, I don't want to insult you.
No,
but no, I remember you telling me about. And I know what the Whiskey is. I was like, holy shit, you played the friggin' Whiskey a Go-Go.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because a few years ago, when Pam's son, for his senior pictures, she used to live in L.A., she has a really good friend in Southern Cal who is a really good photographer. So we took a trip to Southern Cal to have her do his senior photos, and she took him down to like LA proper and did this awesome photo shoot. But I remember we landed at the Burbank airport and got a rental car, and I wanted to take the scenic route. We went to whatever the Muscle Beach, what's that called? That area, Santa Monica Pier? No, wherever Muscle Beach is.
I know it's the tip
you know
of my
what I'm
tongue.
talking about.
I know exactly.
So, and then from there, we ended up driving up I guess it's the one right along the freeway, and I was trying to get to Valencia, which is where Magic Mountain's at. Mm-hmm. That's where her friends lives. But traffic was terrible, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a scenic route, and I accidentally ended up on the Sunset Strip, Sunset Boulevard, but I went through the residential part of it. I didn't know there was a residential part of Sunset Boulevard, and it's all these multi-million-dollar houses that look amazing. But as we were driving down that road, and I was like, oh my God, look at that house. I think that was in that movie. I was like, we're actually on Sunset Boulevard. And I think if I just go another mile, we're going to be on the Sunset Strip where the gosh damn Rainbow is, mm-hmm. Whiskey a Go-Go,
the Roxy,
all that, the Roxy,
the Viper Room.
And I told her, I was like, friggin' Tauren played at the Whiskey a Go-Go. And poor Pam, bless her heart, she was like, what?
The Whiskey a Go-Go.
Where?
Yeah. That sounds like a very cheesy name.
Right. So that was on your first tour?
That was on our first tour that we did out of state. Yeah.
And how many? So that was one of the gigs, but did you kind of do several stops in California as a kid?
Yeah, that one we went down as far as San Diego, I believe, and to Vegas, and then kind of circled back up.
You played a gig in Vegas too?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
then anything in Central, like Sacramento or North?
Yep,
California?
Sacramento, North Hollywood. We basically,
in the Bay Area?
There was one that we had in the Bay Area. We basically followed, for the most part, the I-5 corridor.
So did you have a booking agent for this?
No, did it all on
How
our
did
own.
you get these gigs? Just reaching out?
Yeah. Old school, very old school, actually, because even though MySpace was around, it was still a new thing back then.
Right.
And so at this time we've networked and had a handful of other bands in this area that we played with all the time and we're friends with, and a lot of these bands have been around longer than us, and so they've been there, done that, and so we reached out and reached out to one of our friends' bands called Falling Closer at the time from Portland. And they really helped give me a lot of contacts, the guy that booked for them.
Okay.
And so he gave me a lot of contacts they've used in the past for their tours.
Like, for instance, to book that gig at the Whiskey, did you actually have to call the Whiskey and book it?
Yep, you had to call
it, or
I did, yep.
I did all the booking. What was that conversation like?
Yeah, well, luckily the Whiskey, not all of them is as accessible. The Whiskey at this time,
back in
2008, they were not the nostalgic Whiskey a Go-Go they were known.
I guess, as
the scene wasn't the same. The scene that was back in the 80s, everybody glorifies and knows.
It was on kind of a downslope. Now it's coming back because of the documentaries.
But back then they were kind of in a funk.
They were looking for
acts and bands to play, and it was to generate income and revenue because it's a pay to play. So you basically...
Was it pay to play even in 2008?
Even in 2008.
You had to pay them.
You have to basically buy a package of their tickets.
I know. And it's on you to sell them.
It's on you to sell them because they just want their guarantee.
Yes.
And to be fair, at that time, it wasn't just the Whiskey Go. There's tons of venues in Portland were the same.
Yeah.
And we played those two because at the time that's what you did, especially when you play the more prestige venues. But yeah, so I contacted them, but the thing was though is that not just anybody can call them and pay to play. They have a basically an application process where they have to basically see a press kit. They have to listen to your music. They have to see that you have some kind of a following or
so
reason.
So you have to like send them a demo tape? Or?
Yes, and a whole electronic press kit at the time.
So you had to make that virtually, or do you mail it to them?
That one actually, I can't remember if we had sent them an online one or because I remember printing out the actual hard copies. I think we sent them a hard copy, press kit, bio, basically. Basically almost a resume highlighting all what you've done, all the gigs you played, sending them a demo or an album.
So I'm kind of curious about that because again, it's 2008. The internet was kind of a thing, but how did they actually confirm? You could just go to a printing store and make up whatever press kit you want. How did they actually confirm that everything you sent them was real?
Yeah, good question. I think maybe they just.
But you would also send them a demo tape of your music.
Exactly.
And if they
that was a big part of it because the band that we were on tour with, which was from Salem as well, they applied and they didn't get the gig. They didn't get approved, but they were there with us on tour sharing the same RV, so that was awkward.
That is super awkward.
That was super awkward. It was the only gig they couldn't play with us. And
at the Whiskey, the one gig they
they wanted to play.
Yes. Which any band would
we almost backed
out
of it. We almost backed out because if our bands that were our brothers aren't playing, then we're not going to play it either. And they talked us into doing it. They said no.
They're good guys.
You got to do. Yeah, they dude. Not very many musicians get the opportunity, so they play the Whiskey a Go-Go.
That's an opportunity. You can't pass that shit up.
Yeah, they're like, you can't pass it up. Like, we're still going to be there watching, man, cheering you on. And they were all there, helped us load in. They were up there in the balcony watching us and stuff because they wanted to go to even be in the Whiskey Go-Go.
So good guys.
The good guys, super good guys.
What's
and
the
I
name of
felt
the
like
band?
shit. Back then, they're not around anymore. They're called Akuma.
What was it?
Akuma.
All right, let's give a shout out to Akuma. They supported you, man.
Yeah, big time. Big time.
Cool.
And they were awesome. And really, I think it was not that that their music wasn't good enough. I think it was their genre didn't fit what Whiskey was looking for. Because they were much heavier than our band was at that time.
Okay.
Our band was kind of a Rob Zombie-ish, Static X kind of thing.
Right. Okay.
At that time, they were definitely like death, thrash core, real heavy. Nothing but, vocals that most folks probably wouldn't understand unless you're into that music.
Right.
And people could say that about our music too, easily, but there's different levels and subgenres.
Oh, there totally is.
But yeah, so we felt bad, but we played the gig, and got them chalk it up.
You guys obviously were doing the van tour thing, and I don't. I don't care. I might lose some listeners, which I have zero, but I might lose some listeners. But I want to get into some technical questions. Did you play? You played through the house system, but did you like have them mic your own amps, or was it completely their system, or you brought your own guitar amp and
that was all their system? Because we brought our own amps.
And they would mic it off your stuff and run it through their PA.
Which is pretty typical if you're playing a legitimate venue.
Right.
You'll play out of their house PA because it's a really nice one.
So I'm assuming
their engineer.
You went there earlier in the day. You got a rehearsal because you have to
sound check.
Yeah, sound check. You have to know what your vocals are going to sound like through the PA.
Yeah, to be honest with you, and I don't care about saying it out loud. I know I'm not the only one that's experienced this. We've talked to other band members, especially at that time. It might be different now, but the way that they treated us, and I think other bands at that time that weren't bigger.
Right.
Actually, I don't even say that. Even bigger bands, I've friends with bands that are even bigger.
They
that
weren't
treated
very
like
accommodating?
Shit. No. And really, I would say more so the sound engineers than the staff. The staff was pretty cool. It was the sound engineers
running the mixing board.
They were dicks. They were super dicks.
You do a quick sound check, and if you're like, "Hey, I need a little bit more in the monitor," he wasn't accommodating.
No, and basically they're being demanding, pushy. Get your stuff on, get it off, give you a super short sound check.
You have 15 minutes.
I mean, it wasn't your typical.
Say something in the mic. Oh, sounds good. You're done.
Yeah, and then throughout the show, you're sitting there because we actually have a recorded DVD of it, which we also paid for.
You do?
Yeah, because they offer that service. They say, "Do you want us to record your set?"
Yeah, fuck yeah.
We'll record it. High quality cameras, professional.
Is that available somewhere?
I have it. Yes.
But you haven't published it.
Hell no, I never would. It's so cringeworthy.
Okay, I want to see it privately sometime.
Yeah.
Not tonight, but yeah.
Well,
okay.
and the two reasons it's cringeworthy is one is the sound engineers did a horrible job at engineering. They just basically set the levels and sat back and walked off.
And they didn't adjust anything.
They weren't doing, they weren't doing their job.
Okay.
And then the number two, the thing that makes it worse was my voice was shot because it was the first time, because we started the tour out the day one, the first show, Vegas. That dry Vegas desert heat.
Oh, God, yes.
Screwed my voice up for several shows afterwards. And on that recording, on the DVD, you could hear it. I was so embarrassed, but I wasn't going to cancel it.
Right.
I wasn't going to cancel the show. It was probably one of the worst performances.
No,
yeah.
I'm not going to cancel the whiskey.
No, but I'm so mad that the one time we played the whiskey and got a DVD of it
Yeah.
was when my voice was shot.
I get it. That's frustrating.
And it wasn't like a normal voice was shot because I can usually get around that and make it sound tolerable or to where even some people might not notice it, which is the, I think, beauty of playing in a metal band. It was so bad that because the dryness almost took away, I would say 80%, 75% of my voice to where you couldn't do my normal tricks to get around.
Right.
My range and sing in different ways.
And at that point in time, did you know any quick fixes you can do for your like I've heard chewing on ginger root is supposed to help. I don't know if that's a
I
real
tried
thing.
every single one of them. Those quick fixes,
Lemon tea, whatever the fuck.
Yep,
I don't know.
I literally was doing all of them.
Throat coat.
Throat coat. There's this weird oil, gargle olive oil. That was nasty. All those quick fixes that folks tell you about, those are only for certain situations.
Okay.
But they're not for severe situations. Severe situations like that or laryngitis or losing your voice, there's only one remedy, and that's shutting the fuck up.
It's rest.
It's rest.
You
That's
have
the only
to
thing.
rest.
It's the only thing.
Yes.
And when you're on tour, you can't rest.
Yeah.
You have a show every night. So you guys got to go. And so
Jeez.
that was our
That's
experience.
why I totally understand why you haven't released it to the public.
Oh.
But it's cool that you have it. It's a
I'm
great
glad.
memory.
I want to have it. I've watched it a couple times. It's fun to watch and laugh at.
Yeah.
And it's cool to say, here is documented. We played one of the most famous rock and roll
Dude,
venues
that is
in the
epic.
history of rock and roll.
That's epic.
Yeah.
There's a handful of people, compared to the population of the world, there's only a handful of people that can say they played the Whiskey A Go-Go. I mean, that's
Yeah,
friggin'
exactly.
amazing.
That's a story that I'll always cherish.
Holy shit, you should.
And to add on to this, actually, I'm just remembering this. Do you remember the actor Tom Sizemore? Do you know who he is?
Of course. Yeah, I know he is.
So he, unbeknownst to us, had a punk rock band that he sings lead vocals for.
I didn't know he had a band, but I know who he is.
Yeah, and they were headlining the show that night. We didn't find out the day.
So
of.
you opened for them.
We opened for Tom
my
Sizemore's
God.
band. We got to meet him.
Was he the singer or just
He's
the
a
guitar?
singer.
Oh my God.
And
I
they
had
were
no
actually
idea.
pretty good.
Oh my. So
They
did you meet him?
Yeah, we got to meet him. We got pictures with him. He was cool as
I was
all
gonna
hell.
say, how was he? Because
He was pretty cool.
I've obviously seen him in movies.
Yeah.
But I've also seen him. I think he was on Celebrity Rehab. And
Oh yeah,
I know he's
so
had his
rehab. He
issues,
had his own Tom Sizemore
Yes,
reality show.
But I've always liked.
He's one of
him.
my favorite actors. He's in some of my favorite movies, like
Yes.
Heat. I mean,
He was awesome in Heat.
yeah, I just watched that last night again
was a
for
nice
the
guy.
100th time. Yeah, I mean, he definitely wasn't like overly engaged at that time because we kind of met him as he's walking to the venue,
Right.
probably to get ready.
Yeah.
And rest in peace, Tom Sizemore. So I could feel like I could say this. He walked up with two girls on each arm. Definitely looked like maybe ladies of the night. But they were just walking each arm with him, and he was
Right.
so cool, and the girls were cool.
Yeah.
And we were like, dude, if we didn't like Tom Sizemore enough, that guy's our fucking hero already. Dude's walking into this place like he owns it. Of course, he has a attractive lady on each side of him as he's walking up.
His band is the headliner.
And his band's the headliner.
Yeah.
And it was funny. He didn't seem to have a big ego. Didn't seem to be arrogant about anything.
Right. He was kind of down to earth and real.
Yeah, and very soft spoken.
Okay.
Very soft spoken, which I wasn't. That was
I
like,
can
how's this
actually
guy a
see that
front man of a
because
band?
Even in Heat, his character who scared the fuck out of me, but he was kind of soft spoken as he's scaring me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the first time, the first movie I ever saw him in, I still love to this day. I don't know if you ever saw it, and it's definitely a cheesy movie, but in a good way to me. Is Harley Davidson, the Marlboro Man. You ever see that movie back in the day?
I've seen parts of it. I didn't know he was in it.
Yeah, he's the bad guy.
It must
he's
be
the
like
main
an
bad
ancillary role, or
yeah, he's the main bad guy.
That was Don Johnson and
why I just watched this a couple nights ago again too. Why am I forgetting Don Johnson and Mickey Rourke?
Mickey Rourke, thank you.
That's right.
The Pope of Greenwich Village. That was one of his old movies.
Yeah. No.
You know that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. But he was also in he was in the first Expendables movie.
Oh yeah, Mickey Rourke's been.
And he was in Iron Man 2 or 3 as the bad guy.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
So this is funny. You were talking about a brush with fame. You had a couple brushes there. You had the Whiskey a Go-Go and you had Tom Sizemore. I want to give a shout out. Kyle, I don't know if you're ever going to hear my podcast, but I love you, buddy. But because I know Tauren, I actually got to meet Kyle Castronovo, and I got to meet his father, Dean, and I got to DJ Kyle's wedding. It's a pretty epic story. It was amazing, actually, because the keyboard fell down when they...
I was so hoping you're going to bring this up because that's one of the coolest experiences and stories of all time.
I have the video of it. Have I ever showed you the video of it?
Yes, you have.
Yes.
And I need to see it again because I'd love to reminisce on that.
But I also want to say, and Kyle's not with...
Kyra, I think.
Yeah, they're not together anymore. But I did make a faux pas after that, where she posted a bunch of photos after the wedding, and I don't think she realized that if you post it on Facebook, anybody can just download those. So I saved a bunch of them and posted it and kind of was like, oh, I just did this awesome wedding. And then what was her name again?
Kyra?
Yeah. She had to message me and say, nobody gave you fucking permission to do this. And I didn't know. I wasn't trying to do anything wrong, but as soon as I was like, oh, I don't have any right to this. You're right. I took them all down, deleted them. I was like, nobody gave me permission to post photos of famous people on my Facebook feed. So I felt bad. But Kyle and your father, Dean, was super nice and accommodating. And I got to meet Jonathan Cain and his daughter, Madison, I think. Because they sang for their first dance.
That's right. And didn't Dean sing a song too with them?
Jonathan Cain and Dean sang in the middle of the ceremony.
That's right.
And then for their first dance, it was Jonathan Cain and Madison did Faithfully.
Yep.
And it was an amazing version.
Oh my God, that was so
good.
They gave me goosebumps.
They sounded amazing.
Yeah.
And then of course, you and your groomsmen didn't set the keyboard stand up right, and it collapsed.
You know who was it? I think it was Kyle's friend Matt that went to Guitar Center and had to rent that gear.
I thought it might have been Kyle's friend. I didn't even know who he was. I just got the feeling that, because there was also, here's another shout out to Dean Castronovo. I didn't realize I was going to have to run an XLR from the back of the venue to the front. So Jonathan, because we just mic'd his guitar. I didn't have a plug-in for it. He sent somebody, probably that guy, but I thought it was maybe
I think it was Matt.
Dean's assistant, but maybe it was
Kyle's good buddy, studio engineer he was working with.
Yes,
I think around.
But he ran to the local. I guess Salem has a Guitar Center.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, bought a bunch of equipment, sound cords, just so I could run a long enough run and be able to mic everything. And after the wedding was over, Dean was like, "Oh, just keep it." I still use that today. I have it in my gear.
That's so awesome.
Dean just said, just keep it, man. And I was like, and I have been able to use that because that was my, no pressure here, but that was the first time. I had always been a DJ and a karaoke guy. That was the first time I ran live sound for an actual singer and guitar player.
Yeah.
I had never done it before that.
And you did so good.
I don't know if I did.
No,
gosh
you did.
damn!
I was there. You did.
I heard it. I'm running sound for the first time in my life for 2 members of Journey. I'm like, are you fucking
I could not have done
me?
that. I could not. And I knew at least Dean. I'd met Jonathan Cain. I could not have done that at that wedding. Because weddings already are high stress, high anxiety. But you're doing it for
Jesus
basically
Christ.
2/5 of
fucking
Journey.
Superstars, man.
I mean, talk about anxiety.
But what was so awesome about it was Dean was so nice. He just keep the gear, and I have used it several times. I've run sound for other live artists ever since then.
Yeah.
But that was my first time, and I'm like, that was a super nice gift. And Dean and Kyle both, you guys were awesome and super nice. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that was so cool. And I think even going back, I just feel like I gotta say something. I think the message you probably got about the pictures from Kaya wouldn't have been ever have come from Dean or Kyle, and if they did, it wouldn't come in that manner.
Whoa, no, and I it's okay. I totally understand. She was right.
Well, like, I can see maybe in that moment where what you're saying, like, yes, maybe it'd be nice.
So I understand what she
was saying. But the intent behind what you were doing.
Just because you, like, I'm just working at the wedding, so you could say that anybody at that golf course, like the servers, they don't get to just download photos of the wedding and use it to promote their fucking personal shit. And that's kind of what I was doing. So I get where.
I could see that part because it was because you were using the photos that were taken. Okay, I could see more of that because I was gonna say when I DJ weddings, I was like I've taken pictures to promote
No. It was she posted photos from her photographer.
That makes more sense.
She didn't know. I didn't know when I first started using Facebook that if you post something, anybody can just right click on it and download it.
Yeah,
and now it's their photo. So she was totally right.
I could see it, but I still know that if it came from Kyle or Dean, just because they're such sweethearts, they would have approached it in maybe a better, more friendly tone.
I appreciate the fact that I was there and I had my brush with fame, so it's a funny joke now because I always tell Pam, I introduced you to two members of Journey. What the fuck you doing for me? I'm kidding, because she has introduced me to Kim Lyons, Kim Lyon, no S, who is amazing fitness celebrity. She was actually on the first season of The Biggest Loser. She was one of the coaches.
Okay.
If you're in the fitness world, you know who Kim Lyon is. But she's actually friends with her, and she introduced me to that photographer that took her son's senior photos. Her husband is an actor, like a working actor in Hollywood. He's been in some stuff you would know, but he's not famous.
Yeah.
He's been a working actor for 20 years. He's the guy that just does gigs, gets commercials, gets guest parts in series. He was in Leverage. He was in that movie Evolution.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had plenty of brushes with fame from Pam, so I'm not trying to compare
of course you got to use it when you can.
Yeah, I know.
Use it when you can.
Yeah, whenever we get in an argument, I'm like, remember that time I introduced you to Journey?
I mean that's a big credential right there. Journey's like one of the biggest rock bands of all time.
When I have to pull out that fuck you card, I know.
Exactly. Like I to this day can't believe that I was in a band with Dean's son, who is a brother to me, and Dean's like a family member to me.
So now we're going to continue on your story, though. After the Whiskey A Go Go, you did that tour.
Mm-hmm.
At what? So I didn't know this, but at some point, Kyle was your drummer.
Kyle was a drummer on that tour. At this point, Kyle was in the band.
How did that happen? This is a different
band. The band that we were just discussing that kind of came out of high school and was created then. We had a good run for 2-3 years. And there was some kind of a falling out. I had a kid coming on the way. Some of the members were worried about me having a kid. I wouldn't be able to dedicate to the band like I had before.
Right.
So they kind of went around and kind of got this other singer from Canada to come down and take my place. And so there's a little bit of falling out there and bad blood for a little bit.
I always say it in every episode. I mean, talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Oh, yeah, I'm open book.
We don't have to get into...
There's nothing off limits to me.
Okay, cool.
So basically, I left the band because they basically kind of gave me a real...
So this would have been 2009?
No, this would have been 2006.
I'm sorry. You said that Kyle was at the Whiskey A Go Go with you.
And that was 2008.
I'm sorry.
So, go backtracking a little bit how the band's kind of reformed to that. So, basically, I left that band. And when I left that band, we already knew Kyle because of Justin, the guitar player I was telling you about.
Right.
He played with Kyle on and off a little bit before he got in our band, because Kyle was looking to play with some musicians locally, and he was a very young kid. He's a lot younger than we are. But
is he? I actually don't know Kyle's age.
Kyle he's born in 90, I believe.
Oh my God, he's 29.
Or he's 90, 92?
Because my daughter was born in 92 and she's 31.
Yeah, I think he's born 90.
He's so young.
He's a very young. When he got in our band, he was only, let's see, 2006. No, he was younger than that. He was
16 or 17.
He was actually, because he joined the band in probably 2005, so he's about 15.
15, Jesus.
Yeah.
But he, obviously, because of his dad, he was already
God.
a really good drummer.
Virtuoso already. Like, he was insane.
Wow.
And because, it's in his blood. And but we were introduced to him before we started playing with him. And then when I left the band, I think I hit up Kyle, or no, maybe Jesse did, because Jesse stayed in the band too for a little bit. But Jesse wanted another outlet, a different style of music at that time, different style of rock.
Okay.
And Jesse and I were still talking, still good friends. And Jesse's like, well, what about him or I can't remember who it was, but what about seeing what Kyle's doing? He's a hell of a drummer. Let's hit him up. And so we started a project with Kyle. And then the other band kept going without me. And then Jesse was doing both for a hot minute. And then Jesse eventually came over to this new project.
When Jesse first suggested that Kyle comes in, you already knew who he was, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew he was, and I was like, that's a great idea.
You think?
Yeah. Well, and at that time, though, I didn't know how good of a drummer he was. I've only seen him a couple times. I was like, yeah, he's good, but it was only stopping by his house, seeing him here and there. I couldn't tell how good he was, but after we started drumming with him or playing with him, it was like,
I love that
shit.
You're judging Dean's son. You're like, I don't know. I'm not sure how good you are. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Right? Yeah, no, it's kind of ridiculous. I should have just known. Well, I knew he wasn't. I knew he was a really good drummer, but you got to remember too. This time, he's 10 years younger than we all are, and our drummer that we had is really good.
And
Josh
15,
is really
he's
good.
15.
Yeah, well, Kyle's about 15, 14 when we met him.
Right.
And our drummer, who's about 6 years older than him maybe, was really good too.
Yeah.
And our age.
Yeah.
So coming from him, it was like there was we had some high standards, but Kyle, I mean, it took not very long for us to realize that those shoes are filled.
Yeah, this guy's good.
Yeah, so that's how that project started. And slowly, the thing with the Canadian singer, which is a great guy, and I eventually met him. We're still friends to this day. He was an amazing singer, really good. I think, though, my style fit better for the band that we had. Okay. I think he's a better singer than I am because he had a band in Canada. That made
but your voice was a better match. I think it was
a better match.
Okay,
I think it was a better match, and so eventually, not sure exactly all the reasons why, but he eventually went back up to Canada. It might have had to do something with his visa. And so when he did, that band was without a singer again. My old band with Josh and all these guys I went to high school with.
Yeah, yeah.
So it just so happened at that time we were looking to kind of trade out our bass player in the new project. So Rommel, Josh, the drummer, his name's Josh Rommel. I call him Rommel.
I know Rommel.
Yeah, you know Rommel. Yeah. So he basically was like, "I'll play bass," and we're like, we laughed. What are you talking about? You're a drummer. He's like, dude, he's like, I'll learn bass. I can play anything, dude. He's like, I'm a drummer, so I know percussion. I know the beat. I can play bass. And so we're like, if you want to come rehearse and try out, sure as shit. Dude was better than the bass player we had. Never played in his whole life.
That's awesome.
Never played bass. He picked it up.
And he was like virtuoso. Like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't crazy technical, but he was exactly what we didn't want. Our style of that music, what didn't he call for a technical bass player?
You just wanted
we had solid.
You wanted somebody you could rely on.
Solid bottom end.
Solid, yes.
That's all we needed. And he coming from the drum background, that he knew where it should be. So then all of a sudden we're basically a revamped version, different style, different band name with Kyle on drums of what we all started out to do, minus Justin B. sorry B. So 2006 we started playing music and shows, and that was the band that eventually went on tour, made a full length album, had probably the biggest notoriety that we ever got as far as fans.
And that was the
Whiskey A Go-Go band. Yeah.
Okay.
We did 2 tours back 2 years in a row. Basically the same run down to Vegas and all of California and then back up. But that's kind of how it all got to Kyle and the association with. I mean, because when we first met Kyle and went over to his house before he was ever in our band, that's probably a couple years before he drummed for us. Okay. So he was real young, 13. Yeah. I think he was 13. We met him.
Oh, jeez.
And
that's so funny. You remember Kyle as a kid, and you were an adult.
Wait, I wasn't even an adult, but to us, he was so much younger. I think when you're 18, 19.
You're
I mean, I guess we're an adult.
There's a big difference between 13
and 18.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and when I went over there, here's the kicker for me. The other guys in the band didn't grow up as much as I did on classic rock and music, and they knew who Journey was, but maybe not to the extent that I did.
Right.
Because that was my shit. And maybe I am speaking out of line. Maybe Josh did a little bit more, but we all have different musical tastes and backgrounds. But more importantly to me, it was that Dean used to play for Ozzy on one of Ozzy's records.
Yeah.
So I heard Dean's name outside of the Journey thing years and years earlier, because he was a local Salem guy.
And you were already aware.
And I was already a giant Ozzy Osbourne fan. Okay. So, I mean, I read through the leaflets and the lyrics of every album, so I knew the name Dean Castronova from the Osmosis album.
Yeah.
So when I found out who this Kyle kid was, who his dad was, I could give two shits less about Journey as much, even though he was in Journey at the time.
You were like,
and I do love Journey.
You played for Ozzy.
But I was like, you play for Ozzy. And Ozzy's my all-time favorite. I grew up on that shit since I was real little, into Ozzy. So when Dean was over at his house, it was all their house, but when we went over to meet Kyle.
The same? I went to. Were you living with Kyle in a house?
I was.
Is that same house or
no,
a different one?
That was a house that was just for Kyle that I was living with him as a roommate.
When he was still living with his
When
dad,
he was still living in Kaiser with his parents.
Right. Okay.
And I went over there and Dean was there. I was so starstruck.
Oh, of course you were.
Like a motherfucker. And not only that, Dean ends up going in their rehearsal room there and starts jamming with us on Ozzy songs. Jesse's playing guitar, I'm singing. Dean playing Ozzy song. In fact, we played a song or two from Osmosis.
But he just stepped into the drum kit.
Yeah, he's like, you guys want to jam real quick?
Oh my god!
And me and Jesse are shitting our pants.
You should be.
We're playing with one of the best drummers of all time.
Isn't that amazing?
Dude. To this day, and since then, I've definitely met a lot of other folks in the music world. To this day, it still probably tops all the memories of actually we played. Not only did we get to hang out with Dean, hang out with Journey for Kyle's bachelor party in Florida,
but you played.
We played with Dean Castronova
as your drummer.
Yeah, I mean, granted, it was a screwing around drumming
awesome.
rehearsal, but it was like Dean's played for so many bands. I mean, Bad English, Hardline, dude. Wild Dogs. I mean,
I think it was when he was with Wild Dogs. It was funny because after I maybe met Kyle and had to do the wedding, but at some point I did some YouTube searches and I found these random videos. It must have been from the late 90s, early 2000s, where Dean was doing like instructional videos.
Yep.
Do you remember that?
I've seen him.
Yes.
Is it called Going Off or something like that?
Yes, and I watched him, and he's like trying to teach drummers how to do certain techniques, and I was like, oh my god.
He's a bad son of a bitch.
Yes.
He's so amazing and so good.
And he was
cool.
So gracious and amazing.
He's one of the sweetest guys in the world with one of the biggest hearts of all time.
Yes.
He's been nothing but a sweetheart to me and my family and how he's treated us.
Yeah.
And I have nothing but great things to say about that guy. I haven't seen him in years, and I miss him, and he's a busy guy.
Right.
You know, but yeah, I've over all the years, I've appreciated everything, every interaction experience I've ever had with him, and he's just such a cool dude. Yeah. And again, not just to be biased because I know the dude. I mean, and any musician that knows him or knows the drummers in the drummer world, he's one of the best drummers of all time.
He is. He's friggin' amazing.
And
he can friggin' sing.
And he could. Yeah, he's a double, triple threat.
We went to that amphitheater. In Ridgefield, north of Vancouver. We went and saw Journey there about 4 or 5 years ago. They were the headliner. And I think, who opened for him? Not the Doobie Brothers.
REO Speedwagon.
No. Oh, God, who was it?
Night Ranger.
No, it was... Anyway. Obviously they had Arnell singing.
Yeah.
But Arnell took a break, and Dean sang one or two songs, and maybe Jonathan did also.
Mm-hmm.
But oh my God, he sang at the wedding. Obviously, God, he has a great voice.
He's fucking amazing.
Yes,
his voice is so good, and I mean, and you talk about especially the older Steve Perry songs, the earlier Steve Perry Journey songs.
Yeah,
Dean's voice. I would even go to say, and no disrespect to Arnell because he's amazing, sound more like the
like
older Steve
the
Perry.
old Steve Perry.
He has that
Right.
rasp and that tone that Steve Perry has.
Yeah.
And admittedly, he's talked about how Steve Perry was obviously one of his biggest idols and influences since growing up on Journey. So it makes sense. But damn, dude, like it's seeing him do that live. I mean, even on YouTube videos, you could tell how good he is. But seeing him do it live is just a whole nother.
Cool. Obviously, seeing him in that big stadium or amphitheater environment, but also hearing him sing for their song in the middle of the ceremony, him and "For My Wedding." That was the song they did.
Yeah, it was an Eagles song, wasn't it?
But it was.
I think it's an Eagles.
That.
I think it's an Eagles
Is it
song.
Eagles?
Yeah,
yeah, but it was.
And
great.
he nailed it. I think it's a Don Henley song.
Oh, God,
song.
it was great, man.
And he had that rasp that Don Henley's got.
And so funny because obviously I got there early because I'm nervous as a motherfucker. Set my system up. We have to do a sound check, and I remember Dean was all the way up, kind of at the end of where the wedding party would be, where he was setting, and he ran through it a few times. Then he was like, "This is how naive I was at that time because that was the first time I'd ever run sound for a live band." He was like, "I just need." And he was so polite about it. But he was like, "Yeah, just make it a little bit brighter, his voice." And I had to look at. It might have been Madison, Jonathan's daughter, or somebody else, the other friend that got the chords. I had to look at them and go, "Does he mean he wants more high end?" I didn't know what brighter meant.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Yes, he wants more high end."
Yeah.
So I adjusted
That's
it.
so odd. And this is your first live gig.
Yes.
And it's Journey.
I know.
But you have that just goes to your credit of how good of an ear that you have for live music and sound, which I caught on to right away because when I would watch you at your gigs, even when we first started our friendship and DJing and basically sharing gigs and kind of doing our thing together, networking, I would be like, because my biggest pet peeve coming from the live music background was shitty mixed setups, karaoke especially.
Yeah.
Because it just makes me cringe. It drives me nuts.
It right.
It has to be EQ'd right. So there's not very many DJs, like going back to what we said earlier, because they don't come from a musical background. They don't even know better. They don't have the ear for it. They don't know what the hell that they're supposed to be listening for, but you do. And that threw me off guard because I was like, wow. And even since then, all the DJs I come across that just don't know or don't get it. I've tried, and there's some people you can't train. Yeah, there's a lot of them that don't care, but then there's a whole handful of them that just don't know or don't get it. Like there's been DJs that have worked under me that I've tried to train, and some people just, no matter what, they just don't have an ear.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, so
which
you have
is
that ear
because
naturally.
I don't know. I mean, I think I have an ear for it, but it's not like I can't be a lead singer. But I can hear it right, but I can't necessarily sing it right. You know what I mean? So
I have the same issues.
Whatever, you're a great singer.
Bullshit. I practice a lot that's why I always did my own songs, because no one's going to know if they're bad. I wrote them. Maybe they're supposed to sound like that.
All right, so we covered the heyday. But you obviously got, like me, we talked about this, I think, before we started recording. We kind of got out of that fucking world. We grew up and got a real job. But you're still, are you still have a band right now?
Oh, that's a good question.
Well, I feel like you've kept dabbling in it because I follow you on Facebook and stuff.
I've been in bands on and off in the last handful of years, but it's slowed down drastically over the last 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
When I had my youngest son, he's 7 now.
Okay.
That really, I did get in a band actually right about the time he was born, but that's kind of a few years even before that. Up until then, it's slowed down big time because the kids started getting older and demanded more time.
Right.
And then of course work. That was another big thing too. Kind of go back to the DJ thing, starting to do more of the 9 to 5 and slowly getting out of the DJ thing. Changed my whole schedules around and availability and time. But yeah, right now, speaking of all the people that I started out with, kind of coming back full circle, the guys I grew up with in high school, started bands. We have a project that we are doing right now. We have 4 or 5 songs written and recorded, rough tracks.
Are you guys recording them yourself, or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Justin, he has a studio at his house.
Nice.
A little home studio, but it's a decent
like
setup.
Salem, or?
Yep, in Salem. Yep. And living right off of right down the street from the same place he lived when we were in high school.
Oh,
he owns his
funny.
own house now.
That is so funny.
But
it comes full circle.
It's so full circle, and so yeah. So we are. It's hard to say if it's going to be a band. We have high hopes. We want it to be, but trying to get us all on the same schedule and wavelength is so hard. And everybody but me and Jesse is in another band or two.
Oh, okay.
Already.
Okay.
So whether it's going to go anywhere or we're just going to end up recording the tracks and we have them for for our own enjoyment and could share them with whoever we want, I don't know.
Well, so basically what you're saying is you write some songs, you record them. You might not be able to get together as a band and tour, but you can record these songs, and you thank God for technology. You can release them. You can release them as a band.
Exactly. We can still release them, and that's the cool part. And I love it because we're kind of exploring like newer styles that we've never explored before. There's a lot more singing. So I'd say it's a lot less heavy
so almost a lot
vocally.
More harmonies?
A lot more melodic.
Okay.
I kind of would put more like, and I'm not comparing myself to Maynard from Tool because that guy's one of the best singers of all time.
Of course you are.
Right? It's definitely, though.
You have to shave your head, though.
Big influence, right? I know. And
Yes.
well, say you look more like Maynard than I do. Even when I shave my head, I don't look like him. But yeah, it has a lot more melody, a lot more singing. So I'm really trying. That's why I want to go get more vocal lessons and expand my range and basically my control of my voice to find what my true range is.
Right.
Test it.
I'm going to get back into the weeds because I love this stuff. So as you've aged, your voice has changed.
For sure.
How are you adjusting to it, or is it almost like you're finding it's not getting worse, it's just different? Are you is it opening new avenues for you to use your voice in a different way than you ever thought you would when you were younger?
Yes and no. I feel like my singing voice has matured, which is great because I've always wanted to be a singer in the traditional sense of the word.
Okay.
But when I was a teenager, I love rock and metal and the release you get from screaming and being really intense with your vocals.
Right.
So that was super intriguing to me back then, more so than it is now. And another thing to note is that it's a perfect time for me to explore actual singing with a softer melodic voice because, one, my heavy voice is not what it used to be. Okay. And I haven't been practicing it. So part of it's the lack of practice.
And we talked about the exercise thing.
And it's harsh on me.
Yeah.
So it gets painful and can hurt as to where my singing voice, I don't have to worry about that as much. So it's a perfect time to kind of go into that world. But it's a world I've always wanted to explore. But when you're young and you're trying to be in a heavy metal band, you almost don't want to be, I'm not going to be pussy, be singing and stuff. You know,
I'm not going to be Neil Young.
Yeah. You're trying to be edgy and hard. Yeah. So you're afraid to go on that cliff of like, can I start singing and mix it with the heavy vocals? Which actually became only around that time that we actually started playing live music, started becoming the trend and the thing at that time where, a lot of times before that, the band was either heavy or you're melodic, in vocal wise. You're one or the other, but then new metal and late 90s, they started mixing the two, screaming and singing.
Bring that up. I'm not sure if it's applicable, but like when Stained got big, I mean,
yes.
They were kind of rock, but obviously his voice, he wasn't a screamer.
No, but he did some screaming.
Yes.
Especially in the earlier albums.
Yes.
He could do it.
I've seen...
Mud Shovel is a good example.
I have seen early gigs of them at the famous CBGB's in New York. Gigs of before he was famous, I was like, that is not even the same Aaron Lewis I know now.
Yeah.
Sounds totally different.
Oh, yeah. 100%, which, by the way, just a note, he's one of the best freaking live singers I've ever seen in my whole life.
And he sounds amazing. I know.
He's amazing.
Because that's it's been a while, is one of the first guitar songs I learned.
Yeah.
Because it's easy chords and it's easy to sing.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that easy. I mean, but he's not screaming.
Yeah. And, just kind of to touch on that, something I find interesting, when Stained first came out, I like the heavier parts of Stained, but the ballady, softer, more emotional parts of his voice I didn't appreciate back then,
right?
Because I was still in that angsty teenager mode.
Yes.
And so I was like, well, fuck Stained, when like those songs would come on, but secretly I'd be like listening to them bob my head, but I was
I
like,
can't
no.
tell anybody, but I like this.
Yeah, it was a guilty pleasure, but at the same time I was like, whatever, And then fast forward to years later, because I just eventually kind of put them on the back burner and kind of out of sight, out of mind. I happened to catch him at Ridgefield Amphitheater playing
As a solo act or with
Stained.
Okay.
And there's other bands I wanted to see there. Godsmack, I think.
Oh, geez.
Shinedown.
Pam, I had to work. I couldn't go to that.
It was like the
Pam
Uproar
was at
Festival.
That concert in the
was
lawn.
such a good, it was such a good
she
show.
Loved Shinedown.
Oh my God, Shinedown killed it. That was my first time seeing Shinedown. Actually, it was my only time seeing Shinedown.
Yeah.
And I've seen
Brent's
Godsmack
amazing.
a handful of times, and they're always amazing. But my first time seeing Stained, and what I came from that whole show walking away from, and Brent Smith from Shinedown was it still is one of my favorite singers of all time.
Amazing.
But who surprised me the most, and I thought actually probably was the best performance of the night, was Aaron Lewis. Yeah. I had goosebumps when he was singing some of those songs and ballads. I was just like,
I have, because
wow.
I don't know if as I'm trying to learn guitar, I obviously on YouTube, I have found, have you ever seen any of Aaron Lewis's couch sessions? He calls them couch sessions, where he's just in a room, in his like office or whatever. And he's sitting there, he's got a drink on a table, he's got a joint, maybe it's a cigarette, whatever, and his guitar, and he just puts on the video recorder, and he'll just sit there with the guitar, and he'll kind of muse around and make a note on a pad, and then he'll start playing something, and then and you know this about him, he'll get distracted and make a political statement and start talking about his beliefs, and then he'll go back into, so this is a song I'm working on.
Yeah.
Have you seen these?
I've seen clips. Yes,
okay,
I've seen clips. Yeah, YouTube clips and things
But that's
like that.
how I learned how to play. It's been a while. And I was like, oh my God, that's easy frigging 4 chords, man. I can do that.
Yeah. Well, and I saw him. I got the luxury of seeing him in Salem at the Elsinore Theater with a solo act, his country solo act.
Right, when he did Country Boy and all that shit.
Yeah, and this was just, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And even more blown away by that because it's such an intimate venue and setting. And he played tons of the Stained hits as well.
Right.
But then he played his Aaron Lewis country stuff, which I love.
Yeah.
And it was insane. In fact, at the very end of the show, he walked out to the front of the stage and stood on top of a big giant subwoofer that was sitting in front of the stage. No PA, nothing, no equipment turned on. Had everybody shut the fuck up and be quiet.
And no mic?
No mic. And just him and his acoustic guitar, and belted out a song. It was so amazing. It's so beautiful.
Oh my God.
It was, and I was pretty close to the stage. Oh, chills.
That is so funny. I don't want to steal the thunder from Aaron Lewis, but I'm older than you. One of my favorite artists ever is Richard Marx. Richard Marx got famous in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
But he also has almost been he's like a closet hit writer. Like, he has written songs for some of the biggest artists in the last 20 years that nobody knows he wrote the songs for because they recorded them.
Yeah.
But I found an entire concert on YouTube. He recorded in Chicago. I think it was in 2014 or 15. But he opens it with an acoustic set. And then at some point he did the same thing where he literally walked off the stage, went into the audience completely unplugged, played guitar without a PA, and sang. And it's on YouTube. I'll send it to you.
Oh, I want to see it. Yeah, I know what Richard Marx is. He's awesome.
Isn't that so cool?
Yeah, it's insane for artists to be able to go do that. I mean, and you have to be a really confident, really good singer to pull that shit off.
God, yes.
You can't be a run-of-the-mill singer who hides behind the band.
You know this. When you're just singing without a PA, you don't sound like how you hear yourself.
No.
So it's totally – so to sing – without a PA hearing yourself from a monitor, sometimes it's hard to know if you're in key or not.
It's one of the rawest forms of vocals and expression. Like it's you're so stripped down and raw. You're putting it all out there.
It's the campfire thing. That's what I always say about like my level of guitar. And like, I'm slightly above a campfire guy. Like, I am slightly better than doing the basic 4 chords and doing fucking Wonderwall like everybody fucking does.
Yep.
Which, yes, I can play that song.
Right? Of course, everybody.
So I'm slightly better than that, but I'm still just a campfire guitar player and singer. You know, I'm not. Obviously, I had that opportunity to play in front of people, and thank God it was 2 songs I'd rehearsed for 5 years, so I knew how to play it. But yeah, it's so nerve-wracking to. I'm still having trouble. And you don't know this about my daughter, but her fiance, you have to come up sometime. You busy life. Her fiance, his name is Alex. He owns this house. It's a 3-level house in East Portland, off of 205, and he has turned it into a studio and recording space. And in the basement, he literally has a recording studio and stage set up all the time. And he has a regular Portland band that comes in and rehearses every Tuesday. So whenever I go over there, or if I dog and house set for them, I can just bring my guitar. I can plug into his PA, and he's got a drum kit permanently set up there. He's got the PA, everything. So I'll do that, and as I'm playing, and I have monitors, and I have a main, it is so hard to find the key. Well, you've been doing it for years, but for me, I'm like, I can play good enough, but I keep like, oh, that's not the right key. I'm going too high. I'm using my head voice there. I'm going too low, and it sounds weird. I'm like,
well, it's because you can hear yourself through the nice equipment,
right?
Which eventually will be an added bonus and a tool. But right now is reality and truth.
Well,
that's
what's
going,
weird about it is
shit.
I did so many years of karaoke. I'm used to hearing myself through a PA, but there's something about when I'm trying to play guitar and sing at the same time. I think half of my brain is focusing on making sure I get the chords right. And
it has to be what it is.
It's not focusing on hitting the right notes singing.
Yeah, funny you say that. Just the other day, I was actually pull out my acoustic electric and was doing the same thing. Plugged it in through my little portable PA I used to use for wedding ceremonies.
Yeah.
Right? And I was trying to work on the song that I've been fiddling with for years. But kind
of... Like a song you wrote?
Yeah, a song I wrote. And... for years, I would never, funny enough, even though I always had the equipment, I would never hook it up and play through it just over years in my home.
Okay.
But now I've been wanting to do that more because I know it's going to help me sing and hear what I sound like better. And
so you have the lyrics written and you have a chord progression? You kind of know
what
it is?
Well, this I was actually kind of just kind of mincing out fleshing out the vocal pattern, a new vocal pattern, an old riff I've had forever, an old song, and trying to write new vocals. But for me, I don't write lyrics until I have the vocal pattern I like. So I was just dabbling on it. But again, like you said, when I'm playing it without the PA system, it sounds one way, and I think I'm nailing it or in key. But I'm playing it with the PA system. You realize it's really raw and true to what. Oh no, that's not gonna happen. No. No way, I'm not gonna do it. Not on. I'm not gonna sing on the podcast. No way. I won't sing, but I'll play the riff.
Yeah, play the riff.
Because I don't really have the vocals to it yet.
The mic there, it'll pick it up.
Okay.
And do you want a pick or you want a finger?
I'll do a pick.
And do you want a capo or no?
No. Is this tuned to standard?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And there's a tuner on it if you want. That's what. So I was worried about getting his ceiling. I brought it in because I knew I was going to make you play.
But the funny thing is I haven't played in so long until just recently. I literally the other day picked up my acoustic guitar.
Yeah, we're going to fix this. And this is an easy guitar to play on, so that's close enough.
Okay. I do want to, because I remember, I think it was the one with both of them on. I heard a podcast of yours where you're talking about the setup that your daughter's boyfriend has.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm totally down to check that out sometime.
Yeah, so if I can get you up there, you would love it. You'd be enamored of it. And he's such a good guy. He's all about supporting local music.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And see, for me, I'm trying to get back into a band. Like I'm starting to get ready again now, whether I have time for that or not. We'll see. Yeah, make some connections. Yeah.
Never hurt. And even if
it sounds like he knows a lot of musicians.
He does in the Portland area, and whenever you're up there, man, you're always welcome. Obviously.
Yeah. Well, no, I'd love to do that. I know a lot of musicians, but they're all taken. They're all in other bands right now in Portland.
Chord progression.
Let me just do. Yes, tune. So just the riffs of kind of what I got on here. Okay. Gosh, it's probably gonna be so sloppy. Like I said, it's been years. Oh no, I promise you it won't be that. So how did I start this out? It's been so long. See, actually, I started like this. Yeah, that's basically all the different riffs.
That seriously sounds amazing.
But that's like one song I've written in 20 years. I've written a couple other ones. I write song. The bad thing is, and I shouldn't do this, especially with technology that we have today, and I kick myself in the ass. I'm starting to record even on my phone, like a note, you know, or
a song idea,
a memo. Yeah, voice recording. Because what I'll do is I'll write a song, I'll get it started, maybe get a few verses and need a chorus. And I'll play it a few times. I think I'm liking it, digging it. Then one day I'll play it. I'm like, this sounds like shit. And I won't play it again. And I didn't record it, so I can't really come back to it because when I come back to it, I forget it.
Right.
So I need to stop being stubborn.
Yes.
Even if I think it sounds like shit, I need to record it. However, even on the phone, cell phone.
Yes.
So I can come back to it and say, you know what? Let's try this. Let's try that, and then make it better. Cause
maybe hear it again from a different perspective.
Exactly, because like even those riffs I was playing there, the vocals I originally had for it, they were never my favorite, but they went with it. It was something to get me by. But over the last few years, I'll come back to the riffs. I remember the riffs. I'll try different vocal patterns of it. Completely takes a different direction.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh, okay. But if I don't record it, I forget them again.
This is the classic story of every songwriter. It's like if you don't keep a ledger or whatever of some of your ideas, you might revisit it 5 years later and have a different perspective, and you're like, oh, this could fit nicely in this song, even if it's just a riff.
Oh yeah, because I wrote the riffs
cool,
probably 15, 20, almost 15 years ago, maybe more.
Jesus, dude.
But it takes a long time for me because I don't play guitar very consistently.
Right.
It takes so long for me to get riffs and written that I'll remember and I like, because I'm more of a chord player.
You can't hear me, but I'm talking to Tauren.
I know. I was like, are we even going probably too long for your?
Playing, I have to pee.
It's like,
we can shut it off pretty soon. Oh Jesus, we're at 2 hours and 27 minutes.
did I do a record? Is it the record yet?
What? Yes, actually it is. But keep playing. I'll be right back.
play. I ran out of all the riffs I remember.
I don't think that's true. But okay.
I did. Although I did play a little snippet of Kryptonite since we talked about it tonight. I haven't played that in years. Surprised
actually,
okay.
Show me the chords. I actually don't know that one. That's a good song.
Yeah. Well, I can't remember the chorus as well. I'd probably figure it out, but at least the intro riff is.
Oh, now you're to the part where you're doing the individual strings. I'm not so good at that, but.
Damn it.
That's it, yeah. And I've actually seen them on the Bobby Bones show where it was just him and his two guitarists. Brad Arnold's the singer, and the two guitarists were doing like an acoustic set. Yeah, you're right. That's it. Yes! All right. Let me embarrass myself now.
Do it, please.
Oh.
I'd love to see it.
So let's do Aaron Lewis, because that's an easy one. Thank goodness. Which is weird. And as I'm still learning music, so the song, It's Been a While, it's the same 4 chords, but he changes, I guess you'd call the key from the verse of the chorus, but it's literally the same chords.
Yeah.
So it starts off with... It's been a while since I could hold my head up high. It's been a while since I first saw you. And then when he goes into the chorus, it's everything I can remember, as fucked up as it all may seem. Literally the same chords.
Yeah.
But something about, and Hootie and the Blowfish, Let Her Cry does the same thing. So Tauren sits alone by a lamppost, trying to find a thought that's escaped his mind. He says Ken's the one he loves the most. Def Leppard's not far behind. He never lets me in, only tells me where he's been when he's had too many non-alcoholic beers. I say that I don't care, I just run my hands through his mane of hair, and then I pray to God, you gotta help me fly away. So here's where he changes it to the same chord, and just let him cry. If the tears fall down like rain, let him sing. If it eases all his pain, let him go. Let him walk right out on me. And if the sun comes up tomorrow, let him be. Let him be. So obviously you know that is a C chord, and that's a C add 9. It's the same gosh damn chords.
Yeah, and it's funny, we just add that, the extra note
it makes a difference in the song.
Difference.
All right, get that back in front of your face. We're going to wrap it up. I want to give a proper goodbye to you.
Aw.
So we're at 2.5 hours, and yes, you are officially the longest podcast ever. I did the one with my daughter and my her fiance, Kristen and Alex.
Uh-huh.
You probably, that one went almost 2.5 hours, but
I don't think I heard the whole thing of that one, but I did hear some of that one.
Yeah. It started out with a bunch of like anal sex references.
Yep.
You remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Gotta be
right
proud.
Off the bat,
Gotta be
coming
proud.
in hot.
That's my daughter.
Yep.
So you have broken the record, but seriously, Tauren, it's really good to see you. I appreciate you doing this. And next time, I'll come back down, and we'll get Brendan on it whenever it works.
Yes.
And if you, I can post it if you're okay with that. I can also give you a copy of this if you want to review it before I post it.
I don't need to review shit.
All right, then I'll just post it and send you a link.
Post it, yeah. That's the glory of these things.
All right, well, cheers, man.
Cheers. Thank
awesome
you so much for having me on
dude.
it, man. It's been too many years. It's been probably since
it's been way too many
2016. Years. How many years is that?
But 7. But thank God we grew up. Mm-hmm. We're mature now, right?
Well, we could tell people that.
We have it all figured out.
Yeah, we have the daytime job to prove it, right?
Oh my God, you're the best.
We get payroll paychecks now. We have direct deposit and benefits. Yeah. I have insurance. Yeah, health insurance. Hell yeah.